This is probably not more than all of them.
Good afternoon. We're ready to resume our all-day budget session, and we will continue with John Knutson, Public Works and Utilities. John.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to present the accomplishments, financial highlights, and capital improvements for the Public Works and Utilities Department. I did want to thank you, Mayor, for reserving the afternoon for the Public Works and Utilities Department today. I would have been cramped with such little time before lunch, so thank you.
Mayor, I did,
Councilmember Orlando.
I did warn him last night that he was between us and lunch, and most likely we're going to put you after us, so you were warned, John.
Not like to keep you all from lunch, so this is good. But I do want to tell, I am going to save you plenty of energy so you can take after Andy after I'm done, okay? So, although we have many accomplishments this year, I'd like to highlight the following few. In the area of technology upgrades, with the recent electric rate changes made by the Salt River Project, we've begun in earnest to replace the inefficient high-pressure sodium streetlights throughout the SRP service area. We're replacing those with the highly efficient and long-lasting LEDs. We've also started a program to change out the old lower resolution video detection cameras at our traffic signals. These new high-resolution cameras will allow us to pick up bicyclists, and it will change the traffic signal timing to allow for a bicyclist to cross safely. And in our utility area, we have done tremendous improvements in our supervisory control and data acquisition system that will allow data collected from our plant operations to be directly transferred into applications outside of our plant operations, and this has huge implications for our maintenance programs and for our compliance. Moving towards CIP projects, the city has had a very busy year with construction projects completed for almost every department. Some notable projects completed this year were the Phase 2 of the Public Safety Training Center, widening of Chandler Heights Road from Arizona Avenue to McQueen, and also the nearly finished Queen Creek Road project from McQueen to Gilbert. Also in downtown, the Oregon Street parking garage was completed, and to the west, the Price Road Utility Relocation Project was completed that led the way for the SRP 230 kV undergrounding, which is going to be powering up the Price Corridor in the near future. We've also done some really great things related to aging infrastructure. We've completed many facility assessments across the department throughout all the facilities that the utility operates. As well, we have done our pavement quality assessment that we do routinely about every 3 to 4 years. And we've also completed, or we also are continuing our street light pole assessment, which looks at street light poles throughout the city. And we're looking for the rusted bases and those sorts of things to prevent future problems. We're trying to get out ahead of these rusting poles that end up on top of people's cars after a dust storm. COVID impacts within the Public Works and Utilities Department have been relatively minor. As I mentioned last night, we've moved our traffic and streets divisions to focus their daily activities out of the residential neighborhoods, with more emphasis on the arterials and collector streets when possible. In our capital improvement area, normal bid procedures have been modified to not allow for in-person bid submissions and openings. Our procurement division has done a great job to modify those procedures and get the word out to vendors and contractors of these changes. We've not yet received any CIP project bids under the new format, but we're not expecting any negative impacts from that occurring. Moving on to the financial, and operating for the department. Public Works and Utilities is made up of 291.5 professionals with a personnel budget of $29 million and an operations budget of $65.5 million. Our department receives funding from 7 sources, including the General Fund, Highway User Revenue Fund, and 5 utility operating funds. Now I'd like to detail our decision packages for the year. They will include 5 ongoing and 3 one-time. Our first ongoing decision package is to cover increased costs related to maintenance of landscape and pavement, along with utility costs for property that now requires city maintenance, as recently completed CIP transportation projects are turned over to operations. The areas being turned over this year would be the Chandler Heights Road project and the soon-to-be completed Queen Creek Road widening projects. So this project takes care of the medians and the landscape maintenance, as well as pavement, utility costs for the landscape irrigation, and electrical costs for the street lighting. Landscape maintenance, the next program, the second ongoing package, is similar to the first. This is to cover landscape maintenance costs for approximately 9.5 acres of land recently acquired along the southern side of the Western Canal. Our third decision package will accommodate hiring of 1 additional construction manager to work within our capital projects group. The requested funding will cover 20% of the position's cost, with the other 80% being project chargeable. This individual will be working primarily on projects that are grant, impact fee, or bond funded. This position is necessary to help cover the large workload generated from the many projects in the upcoming CIP. This position will not increase headcount, as we will eliminate another position elsewhere in our department. Moving on to solid waste. Is that right? Yep, solid waste. So I have 2 ongoing decision packages for solid waste. The first is to cover our annual price adjustment allowed by contract with our solid waste collection partner, Waste Management. This is tied to the Consumer Price Index. This increase will cover the 1.5% increase from October of 2019 and an anticipated increase of 3.5% expected in October of 2020. The second request is to cover the additional costs to continue recycling. As you know, with the recent issues with the recycling market, costs have climbed dramatically. This increase will ensure that we have adequate funding to carry us through next year. The cost of these 2 decision packages can be absorbed within our current solid waste rates, so no rate increase will be necessary at this time. Our first one-time request is for $50,000 for on-call temporary services, which are used primarily within the CIP division to complete special projects and assist CIP construction-related efforts. The second request is for 25 handheld Motorola radios and accessories for the Streets and Traffic Division. This will be year 1 of a 2-year program to replace the 50 radios needed. The use of these radios is preferred choice for communication while working on projects and during emergency events. These radios are now 10 years old and are no longer supported for repair. And at some point in the very near future, they will not be usable at all when this technology is phased out.
Councilmember Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for you about the radios, and maybe, I know that the chief has a request for police radios, and I don't know if, is there a chance to use some of their old units, or I know new and trouble-free is ideal, but has there been any discussion with PD about repurposing some of that?
I'm glad you asked.
I'm glad I asked.
When we began the discussion about new radios. We were in contact with the Police Communications Division, and they've been helping us hand in hand through this process. So all of the discussions have been based on the correct radios that our group should be using. We also share, I believe, a channel between police and our public works group so that they can communicate in emergencies. So all of this has been organized and orchestrated along with the police communications group. So using their old equipment, I don't believe is an option, because I believe they're moving to a new technology and even potentially a new transmitter system for that new technology, as I believe where they're headed. So the old Motorola radio, as we've known it for the past 20 years, I believe that that system is going away, is one of the major reasons why we have to move towards something else. So I hope that answers your question. The Streets Maintenance Division decision package, the next package, is requested annually to supplement our current CIP and operations funding to enhance our street maintenance efforts. This program has reduced this year from $1 million to a current $500,000 request in light of the COVID-related economic concerns. The additional funding that we receive in this package will help us increase slurry seals, crack seals, and other maintenance work in the roadways in order to keep our pavement quality indexes as high as they are today. Next, I'll move on to the capital improvement programs, beginning with streets.
John, what is slurry? How long, what's the life extension that slurry helps with a road? Like some people might be questioning, like, why are we doing this now? How does that maintenance help long-term?
Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, the lifespan of a roadway is interesting. I've learned quite a bit in the past couple of years. So roadways, as they age, they dry. So they dry out, and all of the moisture contained within that asphalt evaporates and moves on, causing the asphalt to become brittle. So a typical life cycle of a roadway is within the first 5 years, a slurry coat or a seal coat is applied. And that seal coat adds moisture and also seals that asphalt from moisture and those sorts of things, because moisture is really the enemy of a pavement. So you would go through possibly 2 cycles of that seal coat. Then you move to, as the road begins to degrade, you move to a more another coating called a slurry that has more body to it and adds some fine material. So you would do a slurry coat and multiple routines of slurry coat. So when you're done with the slurry coats, you're probably out to about 20 years. And that's about when we start looking at the mill and overlays. And the mill and overlay is where they come in and they actually grind down the pavement and an inch or 2, and they take that down and then they repave, and then the whole process starts over again. So what we're trying to do is take a roadway, and with no actions at all, a road might last 10 to 15 years, but if you do it in a very concentrated way, you can actually extend that roadway life even up to 30. And so that's kind of where we're headed. We would like to get that 25 to 30-year life. And the interesting thing about pavement is if we get behind, we'll never catch up. And so right now, if you've driven other cities, and I do, my mom lives in Mesa, and I grew up in Mesa, but I wouldn't want Mesa's roads. As you go through other cities, pay attention to that, because I've had several people that don't even know that I am involved in this at all compliment Chandler about what great roads we have. And it's really due to this program and the efforts and the money that this council approves to do that. And it's important, because once you get behind, you cannot catch up. Next program would be for the Stormwater Master Plan. This would be the first program within streets. This includes $800,000 in the second year to conduct physical condition assessments of all facilities, review and assess compliance with county, state, and federal regulations, and finally, review and prioritize needed capital improvements for the city's stormwater systems. Landscape repairs funds $500,000 per year to restore and upgrade landscape plantings, irrigation, and hardscape in the city's right-of-way, including areas adjacent to roadways and medians. Streetlight additions and repairs program is funded at about $750,000 per year and covers the replacement of 300 poles per year needed because of knockdown or failure due to rust. This will also fund painting of an additional 200 poles and a continuing assessment of pole conditions citywide. Street repaving program is funded over $11 million per year for the repaving of city streets as the paving nears the end of its useful life. This program also funds concrete replacement necessary for compliance with the American with Disability Act, or ADA. Miscellaneous storm drain improvement funds $100,000 in year one, $150,000 in year three to construct storm drainage improvements identified in our current master plan. The Street Construction Various Improvements Program funds $800,000 per year for various unplanned projects. In addition, the program carries $6 million in year one in appropriation for expected grant funding. Year two includes $2.8 million for Boston Street improvements, and year three includes $750,000 paid to ADOT for wall painting along the 202 freeway. The Traffic Signal Additions and Repairs Program is funded at $1.4 million in year one for normal repair and maintenance of traffic signal facilities and the addition of 2 recently warranted signals. Year two funds $1.7 million, again for normal repair and maintenance, the addition of another traffic signal, and appropriation for grant funding to be received for the installation of a new intelligent traffic system. The Ocotillo Road Program carries funding of $5.8 million to complete phase 2 from Gilbert Road to 148th Street, which is included in year one of this program, and construction should begin in late 2021. The Wall Repair Program funds $75,000 a year for the maintenance and repair of city-owned walls along the right-of-way. These walls are predominantly in North Chandler. Detroit Basin Storm Drain Improvements, also known as Gazelle Motor Parks, funds $300,000 in year one to begin design of large diameter piping improvements to improve drainage in the neighborhood of the park and beyond. Construction funding is provided in the following 2 years. Piping will be added on Galveston, Erie Street, and along the east side of the railroad tracks. The Streets Vector Truck Program provides funding for the replacement of a Vector truck for the Streets Department in year 3. This vehicle is a 2006 model and has already been through a partial rebuild to extend its life back in 2015. Our Fleet Services Division has recommended the replacement based on the cost of maintenance. Chandler Heights Road project, McQueen to Val Vista, is divided into 2 phases. $20.7 million in funding for phase 1 from McQueen to Gilbert Road is included in year 1. Construction for this phase will begin in the fall of 2021. Phase 2 from Gilbert to Val Vista is funded at $11.1 million in year 3, with an expected notice to proceed for construction of October 2024. Lindsay Road, Ocotillo to Hunt Highway, is scheduled to begin construction in October of 2023. Funding in years 2 and 3 of this program will cover land acquisition and utility relocation. The Streets Department currently operates 10 sweepers. Our Fleet Services Division has recommended the replacement of 2 of the oldest sweepers this year. One is funded by grant, and the other is to be city funded. Years 2 and 3 will also fund 1 sweeper each. The LED streetlight upgrade and conversion program will fund the replacement of inefficient high-pressure sodium street lighting throughout the city's SRP service area. With $1 million in new funding for the next 8 years, we will be able to reinvest our energy savings into the replacement program and accelerate the program by 3 years. LED lighting has an approximate 20-year life, with an ROI for the program based on energy savings alone to be about 12 years. Signal detection cameras program will continue the replacement of aging camera system currently deployed. The new cameras are more reliable and offer higher resolution with the ability to detect bicyclists. This program has a $660,000 cost in year 1, followed by $1.27 million in year 2, and then another $660,000 again in year 3. Just to give you an idea, we have 225 signalized intersections in town, and 4 cameras are needed for each. So to give you an idea of the number of cameras we're talking about. The traffic group currently operates 10 bucket trucks to service traffic signals and streetlights. We have 2 bucket trucks scheduled for replacement in year 2 of this CIP, both of which are 2012 models, and our fleets department has asked that they be replaced due to high maintenance cost.
Mayor. Do those need to be replaced this year?
We have 2 bucket trucks scheduled in year 2. For the bucket trucks are year 2. Nothing this year.
The 21, 22?
Correct. Next program was City Gateway Signs. We'll fund $330,000 or $300,000 for the addition of 4 new gateway signs in year 1. Additional signs will be added in years 2 and 3. And these are located on Price, at the Western Canal, Dobson, Alma School, Arizona Avenue, all the major arterials that are coming into the city. We're placing these signs. Our Fleets Services Division has recommended the replacement of our hot asphalt patch truck due to its age and cost of maintenance. The replacement is funded $224,000 in year 1. The new vehicle will be larger and provide more efficient operations, allowing street staff to complete larger projects with fewer trips back to the asphalt plant for refill. And that is a 2008 vehicle. Streets front-end loader replacement program will replace a 2002 front-end loader in year 1 of the CIP. The Streets Gannon tractor trailer funds the replacement of a Streets 22-year-old Gannon tractor. Now, a Gannon tractor is simply a tractor with the box on the back of it for grading. It's used quite a bit throughout the city on all of our retention areas that our folks take care of. It's an important piece of equipment for us. The Traffic Management Center Equipment and Fiber Replacement Program provides $50,000 per year for funding for the maintenance and replacement of software, hardware, and fiber optics related to the operation of the Traffic Management Center and the fiber optic that support traffic. In the first year, replacement of fiber optic cables within the Traffic Management Center will be completed. Gilbert Road Phase 2 from Ocotillo to Chandler Heights will include completion of a 3rd through lane in each direction from the RWCD Canal to Powell Place, just north of Chandler Heights. This project is funded in the first year with a portion coming from CUSD related to the work along the frontage of their new high school. Construction work will begin later this year and should be completed by mid-July 2021, just in time for the school to open. The Alma School Road Phase 1 project from Pecos Road to Germain is funded in year 1 with a planned construction start of July 2020. The city's portion of this phase is from Maplewood Drive to just beyond Germain intersection and will include the widening to 3 lanes in each direction. The Alma School Road Phase 2, Germain to Queen Creek Road, is funded for design in year 3, with construction hopefully to begin in later in 2024. The Ray Road Dobson Road intersection improvements project was recommended in the recently adopted Transportation Master Plan due to high capacity concerns in future years. $150,000 is included in the first year of this program to complete a design concept report to study the area and recommend necessary improvemements. Design and construction will follow in later years as need and funding become more clear. The Hamilton Street Appleby Drive to Carib Drive project will construct half-street roadway improvements from Centerpoint Parkway adjacent to the new CUSD bus barn south to Appleby Drive. I'm sorry, that's actually north to Appleby Drive, to allow for northern entrance and exit to CUSD's new facility. Funding for this is provided in the first year, with approximately $1 million of this coming from CUSD as part of their agreement with us. So next we'll move on to the utility CIP programs, beginning with solid waste.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a general question, John, or maybe for Marcia too. So we've talked a little bit today and over the past couple of months about shovel-ready projects. You know, there's a lot of talk in DC about doing the next bill, bailout bill, and I know the last time we went through this, 2008, 9, and 10, we lived on shovel-ready projects. So my question is this: are most of these projects, or all these projects, and you get me the number later, get the council number later, shovel-ready projects, or what would qualify? And then number 2 is, if I start a road, let's say, just say hypothetically, Alma School Road, that's phase 1, and we pay for that, could phase 2 then be part of a shovel-ready project by definition, even though we started the road?
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, the answer is yes, we could make them shovel-ready projects. The long answer is that it does depend on how we proceed with the project through design. Typically, if the project is federally funded, we have to follow some very strict federal rules through the design process. Federally funded projects typically take quite a bit longer for us because of all the different steps along the way. If the funding were to become available to us that would not have those same loopholes or those same steps to cover, we could easily do that. Our Alma School Road project, phase 1, is currently being designed not according to the federal guidelines. So phase 1 should be done with local funding. It's my understanding, however, that the county grants that might become available, we don't have to follow the federal guidelines. So it kind of depends where the grant money comes from and what strings are attached with it. So we could certainly begin design to federal guidelines on all future projects, which is exactly what they did back in 2007 and 8, with the idea to gain federal grants. And we can certainly do that. The difficulty with it is it does extend the project time for delivery.
Okay, I get that, and I understand that. So the other question is, I know, Marcia, you get back with us on this one. Are we looking at procurement aspects, not usurping any federal guidelines, obviously, or any government guidelines, but are we looking at procurement to shorten the time frame on what we get, construction started?
Through the Mayor, Councilmember Orlando. Actually, John has got a creative one coming up using Alma School and Gilbert Road if you want to explain how you're going to go about that. But we continue to look at the various types of delivery of projects. But John specifically, because his is the biggest area for most of these big projects, they've been excellent at determining the best method for delivery, such as our parking garage across the street. We would have never got done had we not used the delivery method that we use. So I'll let John explain what he's planning to use on the next one.
Great,
City
thank you.
managers have been very good with us in working 4 different project delivery methods. A lot of folks don't know this, but the very complicated projects that we've delivered at beginning back in mid-2000s at the water plant on Pecos, the airport water reclamation facility, all of the improvements that we've done since its beginning, the most recent Ocotillo water reclamation facility project, were all done with a process called construction manager at risk. And it is one of the allowed methodologies which allows us to select contractors based on qualification. And then we work with them, and they actually help us through the design process, the entire design process. And we found it to be extraordinarily beneficial to us on complicated projects, like those would be. We've also found it to be very helpful to us even in the downtown, where we had some extraordinarily difficult projects there. And anywhere else, you wouldn't think too much about it. It's a pipe project. But in the downtown, dealing with all of the businesses and all of the different events that we had to deal with, we chose to go construction manager at risk there because it gives the owner a lot more flexibility and ability to change what that contractor is doing day to day to accommodate a downtown festival or something that comes up. And as you know, the downtown is a difficult place to work when we start tearing roads up. So what we've done here is we've decided to take the Alma School Road project and the Gilbert Road project and merge them, even though they're several miles apart, merge them into a single contract under a construction manager at risk, with the idea of making the project larger to draw interest from the larger companies that can get the job done quickly. Because both cases, Alma School and Gilbert, we are under very strict timelines. And by merging the projects, we can actually get higher visibility in the market. I can't say who we've selected, but we just selected last week. I don't think they've announced it yet, but we've just selected our contractor for the Gilbert Alma School project. And it's a contractor we've used recently, and they've done a fantastic job. So, and that's based on the qualifications-based program. What we're really looking forward to is getting a company in that can help us optimize and cause the projects to become more efficient. And that's where you really gain on those types of projects, is by leveraging that knowledge, that construction knowledge.
One last question, Mayor, please. The other thing, Marcia and John, do we have small business set-asides on some of these projects so that they have to use small businesses as well?
We do not, through the mayor, Councilmember Rondo, we do not have any set-asides of that nature. But it is the nature of the business, so to speak, that the smaller projects are picked up by those local companies. I think you'd mentioned.
Yeah, earlier we mentioned about small
Yeah, you'd
business.
mentioned some concrete work. And a lot of the concrete work that we do for ADA and other things are done by the little guys around. And it's good. It gives them some good work. They're local. And it's very common that we'll have the local companies help us out with those. So,
Great.
and it's just really the scale. Construction companies are built around certain sized projects. It's just their nature, and they're not going to go after things that are too big or too small. So a lot of our projects, kind of in that middle range, fit real nicely for the smaller local folks.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you,
by
Mayor.
nature.
Thanks, John. Thank you, Marcia.
And Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, as well as what John just stated, there's also many opportunities as these big contractors are coming in. A lot of the smaller ones are subcontractors to those larger contractors, and that's where we pick up some of our local folks.
Good, thank you. Appreciate that.
is where do they go? Second question is, are we able to recover some money we have been invested on those equipments?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Huang, the vehicles that are replaced in our programs, if I'm not mistaken, they're auctioned off through our fleet. So we are able to recapture some funds through that process. The difficulty with many of our pieces of machinery right now is the cost of maintenance. And when we get to a point where we're spending so much on that maintenance, it becomes a diminishing return on maintaining that machine. So that's kind of where we're at with several of these vehicles and machinery. But we do have an auction process that the machines are auctioned off, and we do get a benefit. I don't know how they do on the how well they do. I've not paid attention. That would be something probably for Larry to discuss.
To general fund?
I believe that go back to general fund, I'm sure.
Do you want to answer?
Yes, the funds do go back into general fund. That is correct.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the solid waste program now. Solid waste facility improvements. Did I already do that one? No, I didn't. Solid waste facility improvements funds maintenance and repair projects for the solid waste transfer facility. The original facility is over 15 years old. Some areas require modifications or repair to improve functionality for citizens and staff. Year one has $41,000 to complete a design and assessment for grading improvements. Year two is funded with $240,000 to complete grading and concrete work, as well as asphalt installation needed to relocate the recycling collection area to improve traffic flow within the facility. The Paseo Vista program funds improvements and work associated with the closed landfill and park area. The $205,000 in year one, the $155,000 in year two, and $105,000 in year three, this funding will be spent on various drainage compliance and landscape issues. So I'm going to move on to the water CIP. The main and valve replacement program funds the replacement of broken water valves and aging pipe within the water distribution system. Year one and two are carrying significant funding for the continued assessment and rehabilitation of our major transmission piping under the 101-202 freeway interchange. If you may remember, just a few years ago, we had a fairly major water main break out there that shut down part of the freeway. The other pipeline that we're looking at very carefully is our major pipeline that leaves the water plant and heads west on Pecos Road. It's actually the largest pipe in Chandler. We'll be doing assessment on that. That pipe was installed back in 1988, and we'll be investigating that one as well. The well construction and rehabilitation program funds new or replacement wells to keep up with the loss of aging wells and increasing water demands. The city currently operates 31 water production wells with a current pumping capacity of over 72 million gallons per day. Years 1 and 3 have funding for new or replacement wells. The water system upgrades with streets project funds water system improvements as part of upcoming CIP projects. Year 1 and year 3 have funding for these various projects. So typically what we'll do is we keep a very close eye on the CIP projects, the road projects that are being done. And if we look and we see that we have aged pipe, whether it be water pipes or sewer or whatever else, we have money set aside within the utility to throw into that project so that it can all get done at the same time. So when we do some of our major intersection projects in the north part of town, we have some very old pipe up there. And so we'll be spending, and that's why the projects take a little longer than one might hope, but we're essentially rebuilding the entire utility infrastructure within that intersection at the same time. So that gets us another 50-plus years of life out of the piping in that area. Of course, the alternative is do nothing, and then we get our brand-new intersection done, and then a week or so later, our pipe blows up, and we're back out there again. So we found that to be a good way to get this work done as part of the CIP projects. Okay, moving on from there. There we go. Okay, the next, water treatment plant improvements. This program funds projects and rehabilitation and modernization of the 60 million gallon per day Pecos water treatment plant that was put into service in 1989. Our recent facility assessment recommended several projects which are critical to the performance of that plant. Funding of the most urgent of these projects are in the first 3 years and include upgrades to mechanical and control systems, as well as possible addition of a unit processes to help improve water quality. The utility staff operates and maintains 19 reservoir and booster stations throughout the city. This program funds maintenance and rehabilitation projects needed as those facilities age and require modernization. We're funding the rehabilitation of 1 booster station for each of the next 3 years. The Joint Water Treatment Plant program is administered in cooperation with the town of Gilbert, who is our water partner at the Santan Water Plant. Year 1 and Year 3 have $1 million each for necessary maintenance work at the plant. The Water Rights Settlement Program funds city portion of a multi-party lease agreement with the White Mountain Apache Tribe for Central Arizona Project Water. The cost of the agreement is currently appropriated. However, Year 1 funds of $177,000 are needed to meet the city's obligation to pay the annual CPI inflation rate until the agreement is enforceable, which is anticipated to be in 2021. Our well remediation arsenic systems program funds maintenance and rehabilitation work needed to maintain our 4 remaining wellhead arsenic treatment systems. This program includes $300,000 each in years 1 and 3 of the CIP. The city maintains over 86,000 water meters, each with a lifespan of about 15 years. As these water meters age, it's important that these meters be replaced to ensure accuracy and proper billing of our customers. The program is funded with $3 million each in years 1 and 3. And just to give you an idea, to keep up with 86,000 meters in that replacement period, it's kind of staggering. 5,800 meters per year we have to replace. Backhoe replacement program funds in year 1 the replacement of a 22-year-old backhoe for the Water Distribution Division. This group maintains 2 backhoes for use on water main breaks and will share a third with our Streets Division. Our Fleet Services Division has also recommended this be replaced due to maintenance. Our Advanced Metering Infrastructure Program is a new program to fund integrated system of smart meters, communication networks, and data management systems that enable two-way communication between our utility billing and our customers. This could allow a customer to interface with their personal accounts and water meter usage on an almost real-time basis via their smartphone. We plan to conduct an assessment this year with $3 million in funding in year 2 for implementation. Now we'll jump into wastewater. So wastewater CIP. State environmental regulators require the city maintains ASR recharge capacity equal to 100% of our wastewater production. We presently operate 20 ASR wells that are showing signs of age and nearing the end of their useful life. This program funds a new or replacement well for each of the next 3 years. The Effluent Reuse Transmission Main program funds piping projects needed for the reclaimed water system in South Chandler. $500,000 in the first year will help fund a project to repurpose an old, unused pipeline and allow transmission of additional reclaimed water to our Ocotillo facility to meet our water exchange agreement obligations with the GRIC community. The Collection System Facility Improvements Program is ongoing for the maintenance and rehabilitation of our 8 wastewater lift stations. Funding in the first 3 years will be spent to complete recommended work from our recently completed assessments of these facilities. The Sewer Assessment and Rehabilitation Program funds the systematic rehabilitation and replacement of over 1,200 miles of underground sewage pipes and manholes. 2 areas of focus in year 2 will be the 66-inch wastewater transmission main under the 101-202 interchange that runs then south on Price Road, and also a project to repair a line at the intersection of Dobson and Chandler Boulevard that is not in very good shape right now. The wastewater system upgrades with streets project, much like the other, is a program that funds necessary wastewater improvement upgrades to be completed with our CIP street projects. We have funding again in year 1 and year 3 for that as well. The Water Reclamation Facility Improvements Program funds projects for ongoing rehabilitation and modernization of our water reclamation facilities. Year 1 funds almost $22 million for several major rehab initiatives at both of our 30-year-old airport plant and our 40-year-old Ocotillo, the old side of the Ocotillo plant. And work that will be involved in these 2 fairly large projects will be complete filter replacements at both facilities. We've got an awful lot of piping work that we need to do. We've got some leaking pipes that need to be taken care of, as well as some fairly major electrical system redos. And our last program, the Ocotillo Brine Reduction Facility Improvements Program funds $500,000 annually for projects related to the rehabilitation and modernization of the Ocotillo Brine Reduction Facility that services Intel. And the great thing about this program is Intel pays for all of it. So there's no impact to the city for that particular project. In closing, I'd like to say thank you to our city managers and our fantastic directors team, especially the chiefs, Tom and Sean, Ryan Peters, Micah, Miranda, Don Lang, and Ray Lynn. Our department could not do it without you. We appreciate everything. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions, Council? Vice Mayor?
So maybe I missed it because I know it was a very long presentation, but very informative. And I think we had an hour and 15. We're only 55 minutes, so we got 20 minutes we can talk, right? So you had an ongoing cost for the capital project fund, ongoing funding for a construction project manager, blah, 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 for $93,217. Is that already built into the 291.5 FTEs? Or, I mean, this is, because I didn't see it listed on the ongoing decision packages line items.
So the construction manager position, we have been wrestling with for several years now. We currently hire consultants to do quite a bit of our construction management in the field on all of our road projects and many of our projects at a cost of about $6 to $7 million per year for those construction managers. What we found over the years is we currently have in our department, we have 2 individuals that are field folks that manage the construction management for all of our CIP. So what we did here with city manager's discussion, we were able to move over 1 individual from utilities to come over and into the CIP group, and Russ will help us work and kind of help us construction manage some of the utility related projects. And Russ is funded from the utility. What we also decided to do was take a current FTE that we have that's unfilled, an operator position, and we want to take that operator position, so it's a current FTE, a current position, And we want to move that into a construction manager role. So there's no new FTEs. And the interesting thing about this plan is a construction manager in their role in CIP is 80% funded by projects because they charge 80% of their time to projects. Only 20% will come back to the general fund. So that's why it is a person, it is a construction manager that will be in the CIP group to help us with that field side of the construction management. But the beautiful thing about it is 80% is job chargeable, and that 80% comes from impact fees, comes from bond funding, comes from grant funding. So the actual cost to the city is going to be defrayed because the other sources will be paying for that 80% of the individual. So we're only paying $20,000 out of the general fund, paying $20,000 for the individual for the construction manager. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, so I'm just making the number fit here. So the 93,000, so you know, you say maybe 20% or so is part of the ongoing factors, and then that's that fund shifting for the construction project manager loan. So that's where the 29,000 in that you're paying out of the new budget to cover the 93,000, which because the 93,000 then is the total cost, but that's not really what is going to be the ongoing cost that's going to hit the budget. It's only the 29. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. Yes. Mayor, Vice Mayor, yes, that is correct. It's that, and then as John pointed out, this is a person that could then oversee construction, not only for general fund projects, but also utility fund projects as well.
Okay. All right.
Any additional questions for John? Thank you. Andy Bass, Community Services.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to stand before you and represent the men and women of the Community Services Department and to present to you our budget. It was hard for us to come up with only 3 top accomplishments, so we tried to sneak in as many as we could in 3 bullet points. This year has been a very important year because we've been really focused on our strategic planning processes. And these will be the foundation for our department moving forward for the next 10 to 15 years. We're in process of completing a park strategic master plan as well as a multi-generational recreational center feasibility study. We have completed, added 6 additional multi-use athletic fields to the city's portfolio, 2 fields at Chipperosa Park with lights, and soon to be open 4 fields at Tumbleweed Park. We have completed or have started the process of some major park renovations. Summit Point Park, Santan Park have both been had some major projects completed, as well as a redesign of East Mini Park. We've completed the Tumbleweed Bocce Ball courts, and we're soon to break ground on the Chipperosa Sand Volleyball courts. In terms of effects of COVID-19, a lot has been said already today. Certainly all of our facilities have been closed and our programs have stopped since March. The programs that have continued is a senior lunch drop-off program, as well as we've been providing childcare services for city employees who needed to work during this time. Our revenues, yes, they are going to be down since we have been closed for some time. The good news is our revenue was trending higher than the previous year. We were on a good streak. But the lost revenue, although revenue is not our first goal, it's a representation of lost opportunities for our residents to participate in our programs, from early childhood education programs to fitness routines, athletic opportunities, as well as social connection, particularly with our seniors. But to make some lemonade with some lemons, we've really used this opportunity to try to be more innovative in how we do our programming. And we've really reached, I think, a good point of doing a lot of virtual programming. Our staff has been working hard trying to switch gears here as quick as we can. And some examples of these virtual programming is we've been doing a lot of preschool programming with both activity packets for those who were in our preschool. We have kids movement and music programs. We have family hip hop dancing, music time, story time, arts and craft videos. We have fitness videos. We're in progress of working on developing some fitness loop workouts using existing amenities within our city. Personal training sessions. We are close to being able to kick off what we're calling a virtual recreation center webpage that will be a place where you can go and have links to all of these activities. So we're really excited to try to reach the community in different ways. We have for those who like video games, targeting particularly our teenagers, we are about to kick off a Madden Bowl challenge. And so again, really excited for that. In terms of our library, we have had, in March, we had almost 58,000 visits and sessions with virtual materials. And that's a 122% increase from the previous month. So we're really, really excited. In May, when you look at our calendar, we have multiple programs every single day of May that we're offering to the residents. So while it's been a challenge, we're really trying to shift gears and make sure we're still providing services and opportunities for our residents.
Thank you, Mayor. Andy, just a question about libraries. You talk about virtual visits or contacts or whatever. How does that compare to your regular, under normal times, visits of just the public?
Yeah, it's certainly, I mean, it's not as much as we normally see when people are coming in person. It's dramatically down for sure. But when we just look at just the virtual aspect of it, we're seeing people use that service quite a bit more, which is great. They're still getting access to free books, free music, free movies. So the normal services we can provide in person, we're still trying to find ways to do that virtually. Going into our budget, it's just under $27 million, and we have just under 175 full-time equivalents in the Community Services Department. In terms of how we are funded, 99% of our funds come from the general fund. There are two additional funds, the Park and Recreation Trust Fund, which is money that is donated to our department for things like Adopt a Tree, our memorial programs. We do try to recycle some scrap metal as we do projects, and then also some recreational sponsorship opportunities, examples being Red Cross, Boy Scouts, and Wells Fargo of this past year. The Library Trust Fund is, again, money donated to the library system, and the majority of those funds come from our great partners, the Friends of the Library, and their proceeds come from the online bookstore that they run through our downtown library.
Mayor. Thank you. Can you go back a slide on the 9 million? Is that what it costs to operate the park, like the fields and the parks or help me understand that?
Yeah, so that is our whole department combined. So that includes the recreation centers, that includes the parks, the aquatic centers, 6 aquatic centers, and the 4 library branches. So it's all of it combined.
And then there is a income portion of that as well, right?
Correct.
That's not offset in these numbers, no?
No, so this is just the true cost of it.
You know what that offset is?
So help me budget if I'm wrong on this number, but annually it's about $5 million of revenue that we bring in.
So ops is, like running the field is 4 million a year.
For fields?
And libraries or not libraries, tumbleweed, everything, yeah?
I will get you.
And that doesn't include personnel, like for people that are maintaining it, that's materials, and I'm just trying to get my head around it.
Yeah, so our total budget, and this includes personnel, so this is a little bit different than what's presented here, for our park operations is about $9.5 million for parks.
Okay.
Mayor? How much of that is contracted out?
I don't have that exact number. We can get you that number. But we do a lot of in-service, work with our own maintenance crews, but we do also have a fair amount of areas that are contracted out. which we'll touch a little bit upon here in our decision packages.
Which is overall most likely a cost savings,
Yeah, generally, yes.
generally, right? Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Andy.
Mayor? Thank you. Andy, what do you see that projection, like, where do you see maintenance going? So I think, and I understand that, like, one of the biggest challenges, and especially in this time, these are wants, right? We want fields, these are not needs. These are some things that would be nice to haves. And I always understand that we want to have budget, ongoing dollars to be able to support new fields, new upgrades to tumbleweed, and we do a lot of SIP or one-time things for these groups. But what do you think that's going to turn into? Do you think, are you seeing costs continue to rise to maintain these things? Or like, what do you see year over year is going to be the increase on these ongoing dollars? And are you factoring that into the budget?
So, you know, the way that I look at athletic fields is there's different levels. You know, you have kind of a practice field, you can have maybe a game field, and then maybe tournament quality. And so this is something that's been explored through the Park Strategic Master Plan. And really, I think as a community, we need to define what our athletic fields should be for us. Are we funded to be tournament quality, you know, athletic fields? I don't think we are at this point. But I would say that we have good quality fields. But yeah, costs, it's really hard because right now it's hard to know what's going to happen with costs. But certainly costs I don't see going down in the long term to maintain what we have. But we have a good crew that are efficiently trying to make our fields the best best playing fields they can be. Okay. So jumping into our decision packages, we have 3 ongoing decision packages, and this kind of refers to our maintenance contract for our parks. You'll actually see this in 2 places. This is split over ongoing and one-time. There's $90,000 in one-time decision packages that's related to this. And this is funding for 3 contractor maintenance technicians for general maintenance and repair of playgrounds, irrigation systems, graffiti removal, and other just general park maintenance items throughout all of our parks. This has been funded as a one-time since fiscal year 16-17 budget. And really this will allow us to maintain our current level of maintenance service within our parks. The next one is our recreation temporary employee wage increase. And this is funding for recreation and aquatic temporary employees' wages that is completely related to the increases in the Arizona minimum wage. It allows us to meet the new minimum wage as well as fix compression issues within our temporary staffs, because if you just raise up one level, you need to also adjust those positions who oversee them so that they're not making the same as the people that they're supervising. The next ongoing and final ongoing is Tumbleweed Park, and this funding is for the operation and maintenance for the 16 acres that are currently under construction for the new multi-sport fields and the new restroom. Then jumping over to our one-time funding, our aquatics technician contract maintenance is funding for contract help to assist in the maintenance of 6 aquatic centers and also the park fountains located at City Hall, Tumbleweed Celebration Plaza, and Dr. A.J. Chandler Park. The duties at the pool include cleaning, adjusting the chemical, balancing the water chemistry, painting, and repairing the play structures. This has been funded as a one-time since fiscal year 17-18. The next one is Parks Irrigation Maintenance Contracts. This is to provide contracted services for irrigation maintenance and repair work at non-park sites, specifically looking at the police and fire substations, street right-of-ways, and near the downtown parking garages. And then the final one on this page is our park sport field maintenance. This is funding for temporary seasonal employees, as well as field maintenance supplies specific to Snedeker Sports Complex. Next is our park maintenance contract. This is the item that I referred to earlier with our ongoing, and just another $90,000 to help with those 3 maintenance technicians doing basic maintenance within our parks. The next one is our parks non-park landscape maintenance. This is contracted landscape maintenance at non-park sites to be the Arizona and Chicago street intersection, the Overstreet landscape, and the Center for the Arts landscaping. This includes tree pruning, turf care, trimming of shrubs and bushes, trash pickup, and irrigation repair. The final one on this page is our parks electrical maintenance contract. This is contract labor for repair and maintenance for all electrical components within our parks. This includes trail lighting, sport fields, sport courts, shelters, and security lighting. And then our final two are parks fully park maintenance contract. This is contract labor to work in Foley Park. They do all the maintenance from the sport fields to the general maintenance, mowing, weed control, trees, and bush care, landscaping care. And then our final one is our recreation program expansion year 2. This is funding to continue our recreational pilot programs to expand and diversify our active adults, which includes silver sneakers, pickleball, group fitness, boot camp, and senior excursions, therapeutic programs, which are our after-school program and our archery program, and our aquatics programming, which are water fitness programs, and a youth teen summer recreational swim programs. This funding goes towards staffing and equipment, and it's important to note that these programs are 100% offset with registration income. And with that, we'll jump into our CIP projects. The first one is for a regional park development. This program has been modified in name and funding to reflect the park's strategic master plan that is currently underway. Funding has been allocated in fiscal year 2021, 22, 23, and 23, 24 to accommodate the design and construction of regional park facilities as recommended by the strategic master plan. This park strategic master plan will be a definitive study analyzing demand, industry trends, economic benefits, and maintenance requirements of Chandler's parks. This plan is expected to be completed early spring of 21. Whoops, I'm sorry. Our next project is existing neighborhood park improvements. It is important to the quality of life in Chandler that our existing parks are maintained and kept up to date. This program allows us to provide the public an equitable distribution of neighborhood park and improvements throughout the city. And each year we receive requests from citizens for improvements to our existing parks. This program includes improvements to ramadas, irrigation systems, playgrounds, and landscapings. The projects for this coming year, proposed projects include Navarrete Park improvements, Pine Shadows Park basketball court addition, Hoops Park playground improvements, Gazelle Meadows Park basketball court addition, Sunset Park improvements, and then replacing the playground surfacing of around 30 playgrounds. Oh, I keep switching that, I'm sorry. Our next project is Homestead North Park site. Homestead North Park site is 7.6 acres in size and is located on the southwest corner of Fry and Cooper Roads, just south of the Chief Learning Academy, Chief Hill Learning Academy. Originally, this park was to be designed and constructed with amenities found in similar neighborhood parks. Because of its location, the park will serve more as a destination park, serving more than just the square mile in which it's located. Because of the increased scope and current bidding climate, additional funds are needed to complete the park. It's important to note that this is proposed as grant funding, as we are in the process of completing a grant through the Arizona State Parks and Trails for land water conservation funds. This was an opportunity that we found of funding existing, and so we were trying to acquire some of that funding for the building of this park. If we do not receive the grant or the grant is not enough, then obviously we will need to re-look at this project. Our next project is Snedeker Sportsplex. It's a 90-acre community park located in South Chandler. Since its construction in 1991, the park has become known for its wide variety of leisure and recreational opportunities. From baseball, skateboarding, this park is very popular and highly utilized. For this project, we're proposing to do fencing replacement, dugout roofs, and additional ADA improvements throughout the park. Our next one is our existing community park improvements and repairs. And like our neighborhood parks, our larger community parks also need some renovation and improvements. We have 9 community parks, and we are proposing that the following projects be completed with this funding. Arrowhead Meadows Park's dugout shade for 4 fields, Nozomi Park turf renovation. We would be looking to doing some laser leveling of infields on the ball fields, about 5 this year. Pima Park sidewalk improvements, and Desert Breeze Park basketball and volleyball court.
If you were to, Andy, I'm not asking, I don't want to micromanage this, but if you were to ask coaches, parents, players with some of these fields, I'd rather see that funding shifted into the laser leveling. These fields are getting beat up. Some of that work was done over at Foley. It's made a world of difference. Had somebody almost lose an eye at Snedeker, and I know this is past season, one of the adult softball players. So if I'm picking fencing or parking lots and things like that, I'm going to lean towards fields. So just throwing that out there for something to consider as you're moving into this. I'd like to see some changes in that if the rest of council and mayor are on board with that.
You know, we certainly meet with our CYSA groups multiple times throughout the year. And that's part of the discussion is what improvements are you needing in your fields? And we incorporate that into our budget request to meet their needs and try to maintain our fields at a high time.
Thank you.
Okay, our next
So, Councilmember Stewart, currently it's in the budget. So, I mean, in essence, it's not picking and choosing over this, over that. At this point for this year, and again, probably August, for the things that are assigned to this year, but if we find our finances waning, then that's the conversation similar to what we had talked about others in terms of priorities, so.
Thank you. So Andy, to that point then, every field will be laser leveled by the time this gets done?
So we're on a rotational basis, so this funding will provide us to do 5 more fields in addition. So it's just kind of a continuous rotation of,
Okay.
I mean, you're never done doing this. So we just keep moving and getting them done.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, next is Lantana Ranch Park site. In 2004, the city purchased approximately 70 acres of land located south of the Chandler Airport as part of a regional drainage system. 50 acres of this site will be developed as additional open space and utilized for open space and general recreation. Funding in this coming year is for construction of the 8-acre site adjacent to Appleby Road. And then in coming years, 23, 24, and 24, 25, additional funding will be sought for the design and construction of the remaining 42 acres. Existing recreation facility improvements and repairs. This project allocates funding for various improvements to the city's existing recreation and aquatic facilities, which include Tumbleweed Recreation Center, Snedeker Recreation Center, Tennis Center, Environmental Education Center, Community Center, Senior Center, and the 6 aquatic facilities. The proposed projects include Environmental Educational Center, Learning Pavilion, updating the electric, Arrowhead Meadows Aquatic Facility, the deck drain replacement, Desert Oasis Aquatic Facility, restroom improvements, Foley Pool, resurface of the splash pad, Hamilton Aquatic Facility, restroom improvements, Nozomi Aquatic Facility, deck repairs, Mesquite Groves Aquatic Facility, deck and turf improvements, and then slide refurbishments at Hamilton, Arrowhead, and Nozomi pools. The Veterans Memorial Phase 2. Shortly after the completion of Veterans Oasis Park in 2008, city staff began meeting with residents and several local veterans groups to develop a conceptual plan for a Veterans Memorial that will complement the park's existing amenities. The goal of the memorial is to provide a space for remembrance and reflection. The plan integrates the ideas of the veterans into the design, featuring 2 distinct spaces, a family plaza overlook and the Stars and Stripes level. The design also reps the 6 core values significant to veterans and their families, which are freedom, reflection, recognition, sacrifice, family, and memories. In 2016, the first phase of the project, the Family Plaza Overlook, was completed and dedicated. Phase 1 was funded using both private donations and city funds. Funding has been included for the design and construction of Phase 2, the Stars and Stripes level. This phase is designed to match the exact ratio of the American flag and is approximately 2 acres in site. At its core is a grid of stone columns which define the flag, stars, and stripes. LED lighting and landscaping will also be included in Phase 2. Next is fitness equipment. This is an annual replacement of our fitness equipment at Tumbleweed Recreation Center. We're proposing we would replace 2 adaptive motion trainers, 3 stair climbers, 3 SciFit arm bikes, and 5 treadmills. And finally, Parks centralized irrigation system replacement. Since 1990, the Parks Division has utilized a centralized irrigation system to control area lighting and irrigation within our parks. This system is installed in 63 Chandler parks, and the technology is now approaching 30 years old. The existing system has become unreliable with constant communication problems and component failures. It's getting increasingly difficult to find parts and to get support for our existing system. Last year, baseline controller equipment was installed at Sunset, Meadowbrook, and Homestead South Parks and has proved to be very robust and durable. The new baseline irrigation equipment is web-based and offers several advantages over our existing outdated system. The newer technology focuses on conserving water and provides cloud storage that doesn't require a main computer. This allows our staff to access the system from anywhere through a phone, tablet, or desktop. Baseline is based in Idaho and has several local representatives, and which will reduce the lead time on our parts and service. Scottsdale, Gilbert, and Avondale have also recently converted to baseline system. So this funding is for Phase 2, and we'll purchase and install the new baseline controllers in our remaining 30 parks. And with that, I just say thank you for this opportunity to present our budget to you.
Any other additional questions for Andy?
Andy? Vice Mayor? Andy, are there any more fields, softball, baseball, or soccer fields planned in the next 3 years?
I think that's going to be the great thing of our, again, our parks strategic master plan. That's the goal, is to put a need to that and then to make recommendations on where they should go. And that's why that very first item we talked about is kind of a holding place that we can take that plan and we can start implementing at your direction what you would like us to do first.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, respected council. I'd like to start off today by thanking everybody for their opportunity. It was about 1 year ago I sat in the back left of the room behind me, and our assistant city manager said this is going to be my last budget briefing. And so this is actually now my first budget briefing. Yeah, and she was doing the happy dance then, and she continued. So with that said, I'm reflecting on the last 1 year. I came on board, got to meet a lot of new folks that were new to me, folks that are here at the city, worked with all the different departments, learned a lot about what's going on, what's on the top of everybody's mind, the key challenges, things that they wanted to see either remediated or have more focus placed on that. This budget that I'm going to present to all of you really reflects the vision of how technology will equip the city of Chandler to better serve our citizens, and in alignment with the city's strategic framework. A critical component of this technology budget proposal is the workforce. It is the strong relationships with our partners and the end users through the collaboration with the city manager's office and all of the departments, and that of also the citizens. With that, I'd like to just first say thank you to the mayor, to council for giving me this opportunity 1 year ago, as well as city management. And then of course to all of the professionals that are here, both in the IT department and also those professionals and leadership members in the executive leadership team, the directors and all the departments. What I'd like to do is start off with a few of the accomplishments, and few of the accomplishments. There's so many to go through. I'd like to highlight a few. You heard about some of those earlier from some of the other departments. This past year, if we were to actually present the entire portfolio of the different kinds of deployments, the success stories, you'd probably be looking at a portfolio of well over 100 accomplishments in the department. Those accomplishments are anywhere from infrastructure to application upgrades, new functionality, maintenance, security-oriented, new product, or enhancements to existing product as well. A couple areas that we really focused on is mobility. We started the mobility pilot this last fiscal year. And we've also done some pilots with regards to having employees being able to work more mobile, as well as the ability to be connected, whether or not you're in a city facility or even outside of city facilities, and continue to be able to work productively. Also, Wi-Fi. We've continued to enhance Wi-Fi throughout some of the city facilities, and that will continue to be another area that we'll focus on, as you'll see in the upcoming slides in the budget presentation. From a CAFR perspective, or from a solutions perspective, we also launched CAFR. We have the event management DocuSign. We also did enhancements and rolled out a new hire. You heard earlier, so some of my thunder was stolen with HR with the talent management suite. We've also rolled out things from an innovative perspective that enables us to do a lot more collaboration. This last month and a half, 2 months, we really put that into full throttle with the ability to do collaboration. And I think in the forthcoming month or two, we're going to see even some more on that front. We also worked with vendors and partners. We have other folks in the departments here at the city that helped us to launch smart parking. We also are exploring the world of artificial intelligence to help us to come up with better predictive analytics. And so it's really using data to harness data that can give us information to make decisions, and also address key problems that we may otherwise not be familiar with. From a COVID perspective, this is something that about 2 months ago, I don't think anybody thought we would be working in the kind of dynamic here at the city of Chandler, not only in the government sector, but also private sector, that which we find ourselves working in. It thrust us into a mode where we had to enable large amounts of workforce to be able to work remotely. We also needed to stay connected to the citizens and be able to answer questions that are being raised with a lot of the announcements and news that come out on a daily basis, as we talked about much last night. With that, we were able to successfully launch the city's hotline. We established initially an on-site in the training room at the IT department, an actual call center. We've continued to progress that now with those same folks, and in addition to that, it's much more scalable. We can actually have those calls routed to the individuals and employees at their desk. The next phase of that you're going to be seeing here coming up here in the next few weeks is the ability to actually take that phone, that employee, and we can actually route calls no matter where they are, even if they're working from home. So we continue to look for opportunities to enable our workforce to be more dynamic, more nimble, and scalable. We also enabled well over 700 employees to be able to work remote. I think you heard some of that theme last night as well as this morning. We enhanced things like WebEx. We continue to do so on that front as well, and you're going to hear a little bit more about that in the upcoming weeks with regards to our ability to host much larger types of events through the WebEx solution. But I think right now, what you'll find is within the departments internal to the city, they're actually utilizing the WebEx platform to be able to do a lot of their collaborations. And we are talking about meetings in excess of maybe 50 to 100 people at times as well. So I'm going to move on to what the department is really looking like. Our department is about $11.8 million in totality. Sorry. Our department's about $11.8 million in totality. That is comprised of $8.1 million for the 58 FTEs, an O&M budget of 3.7. That O&M, and I can't say that. Our O&M budget includes maintenance cost of software and hardware that's used by departments all across the city. Some of that is enterprise that could be touching all the departments, some of which can also be department specific or a subgroup of departments. These are all funded by the general fund, and I'll continue to move forward and talk about some of the financial highlights in terms of our operating sources. The totality, as I mentioned earlier, is about $11.8 million coming out of the general fund. Oops, sorry. I'm going to move into our decision packages. With our decision packages, you're going to find those, I think, on page 53 to 55, and then on 58. These decision packages, you'll see, are really something that is rapidly influenced by things like COVID, things like mobility, citizen engagement, productivity, mobility once again, and you'll see in the upcoming decision packages a true reflection of our ambition to tackle some of those issues and enable our workforce to be able to work more effectively, as well as citizens to engage more effectively with the city. With that said, we're looking at, in the general fund, decision packages for the ITALC, or the Information Technology Oversight Committee, of $85,000. And then we're looking at support and maintenance of $85,990, and then Wi-Fi access points. And you're going to see Wi-Fi actually in multiple locations from this, from the solution standpoint, coming from other sources as well. For the VoIP, or voice and data convergence, you're looking at $12,000, and this is the final phase for PD to get them transitioned over to the VoIP platform. And we also are looking at advanced threat protection and network visibility. This will enhance the city's ability, our information security team's ability, to really be able to monitor everything that happens on the network, prevent infections, and also be able to do things like endpoint detection. That's basically protecting the city's framework, the city's technology ecosystem. We also included in here the citywide technology infrastructure. This actually covers many different areas. High level, some of those are in terms of infrastructure with regards to storage capacity needs, the fiber assessment, courts redundant firewall, and a few other items also that are more department specific. In terms of ongoing decision packages, we're looking at file security and access control, and that's in the amount of about $577,841. Continue on with the ongoing decision packages, we're looking at, again, back to the Wi-Fi. This will allow us to continue to expand, expand on the Wi-Fi that we currently have in place, but also refresh and repair for existing Wi-Fi infrastructure. There are units that need to be replaced because they're now either obsolete or out of support, or the performance has just become so degraded that they just need to be replaced. And so these Wi-Fi funding sources come that will actually target those specific facilities associated to the line items that you're seeing listed here. And continuing along the same lines, it continues with Wi-Fi and solid waste and airport. Going from ongoing to the one-time. For the one-time, we're looking at IT help desk support positions in the amount of $144,618. We're also looking at security remediation, and then also vendor assistance for annual maintenance for the EDMS, that's the Electronic Document Management System. Also in one time, we're looking at Smart City Pilot. We started that as well this year. In the smart city areas, we've looked at everything from data aggregation. We've started to actually explore that particular area. Artificial intelligence in terms of gathering data to be able to do predictive analytics. I talked a little bit about the smart parking that, that was conducted earlier this year. We're also looking at and exploring for next year things like kiosks. This will enable for citizens to be able to engage and learn more about city services, location, and things like that. And so we're literally trying to look at the experience of a citizen and what would really make it easier for a citizen to be able to interact with the city, get information, or even simple things like location information. And so it's really about how do citizens interact with the city, engage with the city, and transact with the city. The CIP, we have the Oversight Committee again at 1.5. And this is coming out of the general fund. This is a 3-year. We're also, again, back to the voice and data convergence. This is back to the final phase of that. Off-site disaster recovery and co-location. Continuing with the CIP, we're also looking at the user productivity. You'll find in the budget infrastructure monitoring system, and then the citywide technology infrastructure. And this is still part of the 3-year. You also have mobility pilot, the police virtual private network, and then the Wi-Fi access points coming out of CIP. At this point, I'd conclude my presentation, and I would certainly welcome any questions.
I'd like to thank you. I've felt that this has been underfunded in the past, and there's always been other priorities, so it's not that we have wanted to not enhance this, but certainly the COVID-19 events have shown us that not only are we vulnerable, but behind where we believe we should be in terms of technology. And I think this gets us further down the road than we certainly were, and will help us really to be the city of innovation and technology that we've made our moniker through the years. So I'm looking forward to these projects continuing and being completed. So thank you. Councilmember Wong.
I would like to ask, any plan to including our city garage, like Orange Garage, to have Wi-Fi access?
That's a very good question. So over the past several months, we've done a comprehensive study of all of the current city facilities. These are locations in which there's either city employees or citizens that come to visit us or partners of ours. With that, we've looked at everything from the size of the facility, the population from an employee base, as well as the traffic that comes in from citizens that actually occupy, looking at what's the actual performance in each of those facilities. That information will then be presented back. Then that way we can prioritize which areas that we will look at. From a garage perspective, we have not actually done specific garage assessments as yet, but I'd certainly be happy to follow up on that.
Another question is, well, downtown Chandler, we call it DC, okay, District of whatever, Chandler, whatever. Maybe you would like to cooperate with our cultural directors, thinking about that our whole downtown area be Wi-Fi accessible.
That's a great question. And I think that would certainly be something that I'd be open to from an IT perspective and a technology department perspective. I think one of the things that we have to balance is a few things from a capacity management standpoint. As everybody's aware, we're going through a fiber assessment at this time. We'll be getting a report later on in the summer, and that'll come along with recommendations as well. Things like cameras, we've heard about earlier, Wi-Fi. If we're going to continue to grow, that's obviously going to impact us on that side of the house from a network perspective. And so we really kind of have to weigh that in terms of identifying which areas we want to explore for net new Wi-Fi opportunities. That'll be something that we'll have to weigh in terms of just the ROI from a citizen value, from a productivity standpoint, and also, again, just being able to deliver the services that we do.
So my question is, if the council agree in the future or whenever it's appropriate and our department and the fund is available, our department is available to make it happen, right? Are you able to make it happen?
There you mean?
I'm sorry?
Just to make sure I understand the question,
Okay,
you asking if the opportunity is there?
Yeah, so if the fund is available, if the council agree with it, are you able to deliver it to make it happen?
So we would certainly be, well, I'd be happy to work on putting a plan together that would actually be able to demonstrate how that can be done. That would include everything from the infrastructure perspective, cost, if there are professional services, and then again, weighing that with direction from council and from city management.
Right. One more question. Well, I did travel to Taiwan a few times, and when I need to call in, I just feel, is there a way I can just use internet to call in instead of use traditional international phone call? And I just feel it's if the technology is available, why don't we take advantage of it?
Absolutely. And actually, as I mentioned earlier, with the WebEx technology that we're diving into, that is actually an avenue that which you can do that, both not only audio but video over the internet.
And I did not hear you mention about Zoom. Or why it looks like you prefer WebEx over the Zoom, or
Yeah, it's a great question. And I heard yesterday and a few other, in the past couple of weeks, folks refer to being able to utilize Zoom for doing conferencing and whatnot. Zoom is definitely a platform that I think is user-friendly. And as you noticed, probably a lot of folks and organizations immediately moved to Zoom for that sort of collaboration. In terms of whether it's from a city standpoint, in terms of security posture, what you'll find is that actually the studies and all of the assessments that have been done over the various platforms for collaboration, Zoom is actually one of the newer ones that are out in the market. And the security platform on that is actually much weaker than the WebEx. WebEx is, of course, backed by Cisco. It's a Cisco product, and the security is much more mature from that standpoint, which is one of the reasons why these are, products that we look at, and we're going to be utilizing it within our city's infrastructure. We're going to collaborate outside with other entities, and we want to make sure that we just preserve that integrity for the city. That's the only reason we've driven towards the WebEx platform.
thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, then Councilmember McClymans, then Councilmember Rowe. And then probably Councilmember,
I got a few of them here. As you know, this is kind of my wheelhouse, so.
Yes.
Back from the airport discussion we had earlier, again, money set aside for their conference room, and I see also, again, as part of operating costs, as we do purchase our, it looks like a lot of wireless access points, little WAPs, that you're putting in funding then also for future replacements, and it looks like it's set as a percentage of any hardware buy, is that correct?
Yeah, so if in the, I'll go back a couple slides. If you look in, what you'll see is you'll see funding that's coming out of various funding streams. In this particular slide that I have presented, you'll see where the airport's being covered. And so those are where the refresh and the funding streams are coming from a department's perspective on the Wi-Fi front. We do have, as you know, before I continue, did that answer that particular question?
Well, kind of. So, the set aside operating expense is an increase due to the new purchase of hardware. Is that correct?
It's a combination of both, right? And so there'll be new hardware as well as refresh that's happening. The first year in this 3-year plan will focus mainly on the refresh based on the criticality of it, whether it's obsolete, if it's degraded to where it's not performing where it needs to be, or if it's deemed that there is a need for a net new that may not exist, or it's just what's there is not enough.
So then this leads to the next question. So we purchased new wireless access points, or again, we talked about the upgrade of the conference room. So I'll use that one as an example since I have it here. So we spent $3,600 to upgrade the conference room. I'm assuming that's probably an overhead projector. It's about around the cost, and those do only last about 3 or so years. So we built in about a third, looks like almost a third, maybe a little more, of an annual cost for replenishment. So my next question is, well, since we have a rolling fund of a replenishment cost, we should never have to have a one-time expense on that again because we have the money in the project, right? Or built in?
And I would. That's
the goal.
Yeah.
And I mean, this has been going on a while, right? So then, I mean, are we seeing less of these purchases now than we used to because we have this fund? Because we see quite a few wireless access points, maybe, are they brand net new, like you said, are these new expansion of services, or?
So when we are talking about the Wi-Fi piece of it, right? So currently, if we were not to do an expansion, then it would simply be a refresh based off
Which
of
would already be
obsolete.
covered through the.
But with our assessment,
annual.
we're looking, yeah.
Okay,
So we're
good.
doing a needs assessment to see exactly what would be the optimum state. That'll be the net new that's covered in this 3-year.
Okay, answers that question. The other one was, we talked about the WebEx again, some of the online, I mean, everybody's throwing out WebEx, Zoom, Google Classrooms, I mean, all these other opportunities, and again, perfect answer on the WebEx, because yeah, Zoom is pretty much freeware, WebEx is licensed enterprise level. However, my understanding again, since Cisco bought WebEx, and as we've had history with Cisco licensing in the past, I know that's Oracle, but they're almost similar. And are we now with these future Microsoft conversion going into Outlook and O365? Are we going to investigate going into a Teams, since that usually has a enterprise licensing already purchased?
That is a great question. And so that is definitely not something that's ruled out. With where we are currently with our Microsoft licensing and the product utilization, Cisco and the WebEx platform was something that we'd already been what do you call it, tied into. And so we continue to expand on that part. We will continue to live that life cycle. And I'm always looking not only for the next year and what we're going to do the current year, but years outward, looking at the trends. What's also trending from the other municipalities and local and across the US? And if that becomes a trend, that's a viable solution as our life cycle of the Cisco product, or any product for that matter, plays its course. Is that now the right time to now jump into another platform, such as you mentioned with Microsoft?
Yeah, it's always going to be an evolution. As we had torn down the Microsoft suite a little more, then I think it kind of melds itself or meshes it better. Last point, I want to say thank you also. You said it's been a year. Previous directors came up here and said thank you also to all of these projects we went through this morning. Again, many projects that your teams have been involved in. I know you guys are seen as kind of a utility, not as a bad word, but just as a, you expect to come in and your laptops to work and emails to be fine. But in this kind of situation, your team was put in the spotlight and really challenged. And it seems like, due to your leadership, really shined.
Thank you.
Came through a lot of special projects that went on, and then being flexible and being able to handle this crisis and conversion so quickly. I want to say thank you for your efforts, and to all your team. Please relay that to them.
Definitely will convey that. I hope a lot of folks are watching that as well. The entire department, they really stepped up to the plate. Did not have to ask twice. Before, more often than not, they were already doing it before I was asking. And so it really was a heartening thing to watch that happen, as well as all the departments that we were supporting, right? They also stepped up to the plate, embraced some new changes that were overnight, made that a success as a whole. So it's really a collaboration across the way with a lot of departments and players.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember McClemens.
There might be an echo in the room, because I was going to pass the same sentiment. Technology innovation, smart city initiatives, very important to me. I always like the idea of improving efficiencies so we can increase productivity. Productivity for me is my love language, and so I'll tell you, like, in the time you've been here, you've helped elevate our the love for what's coming out of technology. Okay, reeling it back though. I think technically you've been here 11 months now.
Actually, in 2 weeks, it'll be my 1-year anniversary.
Oh, 1 year. Okay,
Yeah.
so is that a LinkedIn 1 year?
I don't do LinkedIn because of security. Yes.
No, but kudos to you, Sandy, and your work you've done. I was excited to see a smart city pilot in here. I'm excited the work ahead. But in 1 year, you've done a great job of really helping us live up to our name of community innovation. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Kim Moyers, Cultural Development.
Council, good afternoon. Cultural Development just hit its first year anniversary as well, and I have numerous accomplishments that I want to talk to you about today. The first one is the first phase of New Square, directly across the street from City Hall in former city-owned property. This is a mixed-use development that will provide additional jobs to the downtown and includes the Hilton Garden Inn. The opening of the Oregon Street parking garage brought over 1,200 new parking spaces to our downtown and new public art. Our 30th anniversary of the Chandler Center for the Arts had a banner year with 599 shows, programs, events, with over 116,000 people in attendance. The Chandler Museum completed its first year with 15 exhibits, 112 programs, and the formation of the Chandler Museum Foundation. Unfortunately, COVID brought closures to the Center for the Arts, the Vision Gallery, the museum, and all special events on city-owned property, resulting in over 283 performances, events, programs, and field trips that had to be canceled during this time. Our downtown continues to flourish year over year, and this year was no exception, with numerous restaurants and development openings. COVID has directly impacted the downtown office community, bringing most of them home or laid off, forcing our 37 restaurants and bars to carry out only or close their doors completely, laying off staff and significantly reduced revenues, and our hearts go out to all of those affected by that. We have 26 employees for a total of just shy of a $4.2 million budget. Almost 87% is general funded. Approximately 12% is from the Municipal Arts Fund, and just less than 1% from both the Museum Trust Fund and the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund for again, a total of almost 1.2 million, or excuse me, 4.2 million. Our decision packages can be found on page 52. Our first ongoing or only ongoing decision package is the Center for the Arts and Vision Gallery, which uses contract staff for the additional technicians, box office custodians, and visual arts installation. With minimum wages increasing from $11 to $12 an hour, this funding will offset the increase in contractual services. Going on to our one-time decision package. In 2018, the tree lighting and parade was redesigned to include an expanded parade route and enlarged activity area. This one-time funding will offer the same experience as it has in the past, with the additional funding covering additional labor costs to clean the parade route, additional generators and lights, barricades, portable restrooms, and dumpsters. Jazz Fest and Cinepark, these are two of our city's signature events that are requesting the same appropriation as last year. Jazz Fest is in its 22nd year, and Cinepark is in its 6th year. And the City of Chandler has approved one-time monies for the symphony since 2006. They have requested the same amount this year as last year at $45,000. Last is a decision package is the 2021 Ostrich Festival. The Ostrich Festival is a Chamber of Commerce event and part of a 5-year contract with the City of Chandler, incurring costs related to police, fire, park, street maintenance, and fees. The Chamber is considering a second weekend for the Ostrich Festival in 2021. The Chamber would be responsible for reimbursing the city of all costs incurred during that second weekend, making this a 100% revenue offset. Moving on to our CIPs. The first is the Center for the Arts Facility Improvements. Back in 2007, 2008, there was a facility needs assessment that was then looked at again in 13, 14. The first year will be approximately $555,000, half of which will be offset by the school district for their 50% reimbursement. These will include Bogle theater rigging and drapery replacement, new lobby seating, and new exterior seating. And the last one is downtown redevelopment. $500,000 per year for the first 2 years and $600,000 for the third year. These monies are used for maintenance of the downtown, including items such as colonnade improvements, sidewalks, breezeway, electrical issues, lighting, banners, beautification, and signage. With the improvements that we did on Arizona Avenue from Fry to Pecos, we anticipate additional maintenance in this area for trash cans, poles, lighting, contractual cleaning, et cetera, and we've included that into the third year. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, the Center for the Arts Facility Improvement. So
Yes.
that's the 755. Is that our part of the half, or is that the full cost and then we get reimbursed from the CUSD for the other half?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, that is the entire amount, and then the school district would reimburse 50% to the large majority of that. There's a small, about $20,000 that they do not reimburse us for, but all of the rest of it will be a 50% offset.
Okay. And I also wanted to throw a comment about the Tumbleweed Lighting Parade. Considering how big of an event that is, the huge draw, and the massive ROI and payback to the downtown, that tree lighting for only $25,000 is a great benefit. So I hopefully we do that for generations to come. So thank you.
Thank you. That's a true team effort, and Hermelinda leads that charge.
Hey, since I have you here, real quick question. How are we doing getting the downtowners some parking space for the takeout?
We are working on that now as we speak. We had requested a letter from the DCCP. We did get that as of last night.
Okay.
So we will work with all of the departments and bring a request to city management early next week so that we can get that installed as quick as possible, should it be approved.
Great, perfect, appreciate that. Back to the downtown, the maintenance portion of
Yes.
this. I know there was discussion with the DCCP on cost sharing, or how, have we worked that out as well?
We have. So the DCCP spends about $55,000, and I might be off $5,000 or so for the clean team. Those costs were actually elevated again this year. So we have included some additional monies in our downtown maintenance budget to help them out. We think it's a great addition to the downtown, and it makes a big difference in their beautification efforts.
Okay, so we're supporting that effort and cleaning it up. Great.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let's get that letter approved, okay?
Good.
Thanks.
That's great. I was following along on that thread. Is that so they just need approval because it's our parking lot, or it's their parking space, and they put their own sign up, right? Like Chris Green's did that. They just covered up a sign and said, "This is our parking." So we don't have enforcement, but DCCP is paying for this out of there. How's that working?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, the DCCP has spoken with the downtown businesses. They are requesting 30-minute parking along parts of San Marcos Place and Boston Street for pickup and takeout. We have talked with our transportation to see what that would take, and we're trying to get all of the information, the timing, the cost that's associated with that. The city would pick up the cost for that downtown maintenance funds, and we'll bring that to city management for consideration.
Okay, so because it's our parking lot.
It's correct. It's on-street parking. So it's all of the parking spaces along Boston, along the Colonnade, and then again on San Marcos Place. Those are where they would like to see the 30-minute parking.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Rolling room. Leopold, Neighborhood Services.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to come talk to you about the Neighborhood Resources budget. Oops, hold on, not police. There we go. All right, to begin with, I wanted to talk about our accomplishments. During this last budget cycle last year for this current fiscal year, we were awarded a position for a neighborhood preservation technician. One of the primary responsibilities for this position is our alley maintenance program. And we are proud to report the results from this year is that we have a 97% voluntary compliance with that program. The way that it works is the technician goes out, observes those residents that need to maybe take care of weeds or other kind of debris in the alley. We send them informational type letters, goes back and does another check on that. And so only 3% of the time do we have to send a case on to an inspector to actually go ahead and open up a case and do a formal inspection with issuing notices. So that's been a very, very good program for us, and certainly has kept costs down from having to send inspectors out to deal with the alley issues. As you all remember, that last year we were given some additional funding for the Multicultural Festival as it was our 25th year. We were able to introduce the Asian Village, so I thank council again for, during the amendment process, be providing some funds for that activity. It was a huge success. I think it was a great enhancement for that event, so we're very proud of that. Majority of our funding is federal, as I will show you in a moment, so of course it's extremely important for us that we are meeting the HUD guidelines. And I'm proud to say that our housing department continues to be a high-performing agency for both the public housing side and the Section 8 management side. In addition to that, the other side of HUD, our community development block grant fundings, we received recognition that we met all of our standards for that, so we continue to perform to all of HUD standards. Moving on to how we've been impacted by COVID, we discussed this yesterday, but as you know, we did a moratorium on code enforcement to the extent that we had been doing code enforcement. We still continue to do enforcement on those extreme cases, but because of the stress it was putting on residents and businesses, we did back down from the notification process. And then also, as you know from our session yesterday, we are receiving CDBG CV money in response to COVID-19. I am happy to report the staff has gone back and reworked our timeline. We will be coming back to you on May 14th with where those funds will be allocated. We actually are going to be releasing the application for some of that funding this afternoon. Moving into the operating budget, as you can see, we have about $19.5 million. There's an equivalent of 50 full-time employees. We do actually have a few more bodies than that because we do have some part-time positions that are in here, but we have 50 full-time equivalency. One of the things I always like to point out with our budget is that we are almost 82% federally funded, and majority of our staff are federally funded. And in some years, that's a cause for concern because we don't know what's happening with federal funds. This year, we're feeling confident with it as we know that we are receiving the CDBG CV money, as well as we anticipate we will be receiving some additional public housing money and possibly even home money because of COVID-19. I'd like to move into the decision packages. They can be found on page 54, 55, and 59, and actually we're going to begin on page 59. So the first thing you see is this is a temporary position that will be ongoing funded as long as we have grant funds for it. This is for a housing assistant. What we have done is we typically will have either city temporary staff or through DeVal temporary staff that will help with some of the administrative functions within housing. We really need to have more consistency with that. As you know, a few months ago, we opened up our wait list for Section 8. We have 4,000 people on that list. And because of the tight rental market here in Chandler, we feel like we need to be doing many more briefings and be going through the list quicker than what we have in the past. We're trying to get through our list of 4,000 in about 2 to 3 years. So that requires additional staff time to really be on top of doing those briefings. So we need that consistency with that person. And then hopefully we'll be moving forward with some type of redevelopment program in the future. And again, this position will allow us to have some of that administrative support if we should move forward with redevelopment in the future. Now back on page 54, we'll look at the one-time decision packages. And the first one is community resources funding. This is $10,000 that goes to support, really it'll be the Multicultural Festival and other diversity type programming. We certainly will continue to try to look for sponsorship for things. Not sure what it's going to be like going forward in the business community being able to sponsor. Staff is already in discussion, though Nikki Chappie is in discussion with a couple large corporations in Chandler that are interested in sponsoring our program, so we'll see how that pans out. The hauling contract is something we brought forward originally in fiscal year 18-19. Those are special funds that we can use to react quickly to incidents. Lots of times it's in an alley, for example. When we get a call of something that's been dumped in an alley, it becomes administratively complicated. It could be our department that needs to deal with it, or solid waste, sometimes even streets is involved in cleaning up alleys before they go in to do maintenance. And we have found that by having this small contract, we can respond so much faster and be much, much more efficient. And the sooner we get things out of the alley, then the less chance there is that somebody's going to become and dump more. So I think some of you have actually seen that in places. We also have been able to respond to some of the vacant lots in downtown before they were fenced and things like that. And we even used it in conjunction with Forest City Day this year. We had some additional cleanup that needed to take place after that day, and we're able to use that. For neighborhood outreach and events, this is a new ask that will support things like the new Envision Chandler that we will be rolling out sometime here in the future. We really want to work hard at re-engaging our neighborhoods. We know we have a lot of neighborhoods that have been registered for a long time, but we feel it's important to really re-engage them. And so these funds will go to help with those outreach type events. Moving on to page 55, our one-time decision packages. We have the neighborhood cleanup dumpster funds. What has been happening in the past is that neighborhoods are applying for the neighborhood grant money just to be able to get dumpsters and cleanup. So instead of using those neighborhood grant funds, which we are very limited on, we only have $15,000 in the neighborhood grant fund as a base, we would like to be able to have this money carved aside to just be able to get dumpsters. This will allow neighborhoods to be able to apply for funds for other things other than dumpsters. Bridge housing and diversion. You learned a little bit about this yesterday when we talked about the COVID-19 funding that we're getting and how we do the navigation. These are very, very important funds because it allows our navigator to take people who are experiencing homelessness and really work at whatever their barriers are. And sometimes there's barriers or things that you and I would never think about. We've talked about this in the past. It could be getting a driver's license. It could be, sometimes it's as simple as buying a person a cup of coffee or a hamburger to start that dialogue between them. And some of these funds are not things that we can use federal dollars for. So this is money that we will receive this current fiscal year and are asking for again because there's a little bit more flexibility with these dollars, and it really helps us to be able to get people into resources and shelter and get them off the streets. And finally, the last package on here is a revenue offset. These are the funds that allow us to do things like Operation Back to School and Forest City Day to be able to collect the revenue that comes in from sponsorship and donations and to spend it on the events themselves. So we do not spend any money out of here that we do not collect first. Finally, if we go back to page 59, this is our community navigator position. We have been contracting out with a nonprofit for the community navigator, but what we found is we were not getting really the full amount of time that we were paying for because of where they had to start out in Phoenix, they had to go pick up a car, then they'd have to go back to Phoenix at the end of the day. There was a lot of different training and meetings. We really felt it was important for us to have this position in-house and be able to control it. So we used some temporary dollars just for these last few months to try that and see what it was like, and it's worked tremendously well for us. We've been able to maximize the amount of time we have in this community navigator. So what we will be doing is using this CDBG CV money to pay for this temporary position. It'll be a 40-hour-a-week position, but it will not be a full-time employee, so that we can have the navigator in-house, be able to have more control, and then we will contract out for the other navigator, but this position will oversee that navigation as well. And again, in responding to what we have with the increased, I would say, work that we have to do, I guess, the increased work we have to do because of the situation with COVID-19 with the homeless community, this navigator will also give us someone who can navigate through all that, literally, going through getting the people into hotels and things like that, things that we are not necessarily doing now. This person will be able to do that with our changing the situation that we're in right now. And with that, that's the end of the presentation. I don't know if there's any questions.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Touch it, but gotta clean for the chief.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present the Police Department's proposed budget. If you look by our first slide, certainly our purpose, our mission as a police department is to help keep our city safe. And last year we experienced relatively low crime rates, especially for a city of this size. In fact, last year we were recognized by Wallet Hub as being the 9th safest city in America with populations over 200,000 people. So while we absolutely realize that there are many complex variables that affect crime rates, and some of those, quite frankly, we don't control at all. But there are areas that we do influence, and it starts with who we hire, our people, who we bring on board, but also our training and equipment, our leadership, our infrastructure, the way we leverage technology. But really the cornerstone of our success by far is the ability to relate and partner with the community. Having their support, their trust and respect absolutely leads to our success. So we will continue to strive to build that trust and support and to move forward and keep our community safe. Second accomplishment I'd like to highlight is our personnel, how we've been able to develop our personnel. In the 6 years now that I've been chief, we've experienced just over 50% turnover. So more than half the department is newly hired in the last 6 years. So that is a constant state of transition, not just onboarding new people, but developing a pipeline of leaders. So we spend a considerable time and energy and amount of energy on our training and developing leaders that will help continue to shape our culture and influence our reputation as we move forward into the future. And then the third accomplishment I'd like to highlight is the fact, and certainly many people in this room had a lot to do with it, but we completed phase 2 of our part of the training center with the opening of our new range last March. So just taking us to a whole different level and an ability to provide some real world-class training in a fantastic modern facility. So the impact on that COVID or the pandemic has had on the police. I mentioned just a few minutes ago how reliant we are with the engaging and being partners with the community. Again, that is the cornerstone of our foundation, our success. And besides the daily contacts and interactions, those moments of truth that all employees have, those times where just that one-on-one contact to earn that support and trust, very important, and those obviously will continue and have continued. But we also invest time in our programs. We have initiatives, whether it's Coffee with a Cop or Citizens Academy or tours or ride-alongs, dozens and dozens of programs where we are outward-facing, embedded ourselves in the community. Well, all those have come to a screeching halt because of COVID. So that is just the opposite business model that we've been used to pre-COVID. So we understand the importance of social distancing, and we've been practicing that. We are looking forward to getting back at some point in the future out back into the community and working alongside them. So that has been a tremendous impact and a deviation in the way we've historically have done business. All right, our next slide. Just highlighting our proposed operating budget for 505 full-time employees. And again, the majority of our budget goes towards our personnel with about $9.5 million targeted for operation and maintenance. Our operating fund source, the majority of money comes from the city's general fund, but we also have a pipeline of some grants from domestic violence, forfeiture fund, and another grant to the Department of Justice that I'll explain in a few minutes how it applies towards our victim services unit. But the overwhelming majority of our funding comes from the city's general fund. All right, our first ongoing decision package is a request to fund the operations and maintenance of the police department's portion of phase 2 of the new training center, which has just opened in March, and this will carry us through the second half of the fiscal year, of the calendar year, actually. And then our next request is for a position which really is not a new position. I know the city manager spoke a little bit about it earlier this morning, but this is not a new position. This is a position that I created about 5 years ago to better align the responsibilities and span of control among our existing commanders. At the time, there were 4 commanders, each precinct is led by a commander, and then our criminal investigations bureau was led by a commander. But we had all these ancillary jobs from canines and SWAT and training and detention and the range. They were all diversified among different commanders as ancillary responsibilities. And that was not an effective way to control and certainly hold people accountable. So what we did was we created an operational support bureau led by a commander. We took all those supporting elements and brought them under one umbrella, under one command. And that's proven to be very effective over the last 5 years. So this position has been temporarily funded each year for the past 4 years using the Public Safety Reserve Fund. And this request is to fully fund that position moving forward. Our next decision package request for ongoing is this is a request to add one school resource officer to restore SRO coverage at every Chandler high school and middle school. I don't know if I'm sure you may recall about 3 years ago, the Chandler School District did not receive funding for all of their SROs. So as a result, we had to reduce our complement by one, and that left one SRO covering 2 middle schools. This year, this upcoming grant cycle, the school district received full funding for all SROs. So this is a request to bring on board an additional SRO specifically for Anderson Junior High School. And then at that point, all our schools will be fully supported by a SRO on site full time. And this position will be offset by the grant that the school district received. All right, the next page is our one-time request. The first request is to, fund and outfit that SRO position. So this is funding that would include money for a vehicle, their mobile radios, portable radios, all their equipment and uniform, and all the expenses that go along with bringing on board one sworn position. Second request is one-time funding for the ability to extend the contract that we currently have in place with one embedded crime analyst who provides proactive and predictive crime analysis within our department. This is a position that we rely on every day, and we have been for the past 4 years. They help support and push out real-time information to officers on the street so we can police smarter and more effectively. And this is a request to extend that contract for another year. The next one-time request is for an extension of a business systems support analyst. We currently have one contract employee assigned to our technology unit. And again, we've had this position in place for 4 years, and they support a wide variety of different databases within the police department. This is a very important position that really helps run our data warehouse, which is a software that consolidates all disparate groups of information, brings it into one central location for our users. And it also supports our crime analysis efforts, our planning efforts, and our internal dashboards that track our overtime and our staffing. And it actually populates real-time data every few hours. So as soon as information is inputted by officers, we get a populated count every few hours of what's happening in the city as far as crime-wise. And so it's a position that we rely on every single day, and it's quite essential for our operation. The next page is a request to continue funding our taser replacement. If you recall, 3 years ago, we replaced all the department tasers, about 340 tasers. We developed a 4-year payment plan, and this is year 4 of that payment plan to finally have the tasers. This is the final payment of the tasers. The next item is our victim services specialist funding. We have 3 victim services positions, and they assist thousands of crime victims throughout the year. They help them navigate through the criminal justice system. They are their voice, their advocates, and they are there when people are in desperate need for support. So we have 3 of those positions. 2 of those are full-time funded, and 1 of those positions is entirely grant funded. So between the DPS VOCA grant, the Victims of Crime Assistance grant, and then the domestic violence grant, or domestic violence funding that we have through the city, we like to fund that position utilizing both those sources. And then final one on this page is the weapons proceed. Recall a number of years ago, there was a House Bill 2455 that was passed that required all unclaimed firearms to be sold rather than destroyed. And that money is specifically earmarked for community outreach events. So we want to appropriate money not to exceed the revenue that we take in for the year, but that money goes to different outreach programs, our cadets, our victim services, our wilderness program, and a portion of that money goes to the fire department for their fire prevention programs as well. Then our next slide is to appropriate, this is the final decision package, to appropriate $750,000 in RICO funds that would help pay for a variety of operational needs as they come up throughout the year. And historically, we've used this funding during the year when we may have a death of a canine and and the canine wasn't budgeted. So this is the money we go to replace the canine. We may have to buy different optics for weapons if something broke, or replace the shield that was damaged. So a variety of different equipment issues. We've purchased items for the laboratory. We've purchased items for some operational support. So just depending on what the need is during the year, we have at least this money appropriated that we can go to use throughout the year to buy different items. And then our next slide is our CIP. There are two items specifically that we are wanting to fund. The first one is a request to fund our body-worn camera program for another 5 years. I will tell you, this program has been invaluable in so many different ways. Number one, collecting compelling evidence, demonstrating incredible transparency to the community, and holding people accountable, both the public and officers. And the plan here is to split the payment over a 2-year period. And we are going to go with the same vendor that we used last time. It's just the complete suite of options from the software to the hardware, but most importantly, the interface, how it interfaces with our RMS and different systems. It is a very simple system to use, essentially, and a cost-effective way to record and retrieve information. Then the second CIP is radio communications equipment. And this includes two different systems. Two different systems. The first replacement, or first scheduled replacement, is for 227 mobile radios. Those are the radios fixed inside our patrol cars. And the second system are our handheld radios. We have 497 portable radios that are carried by officers, detention staff, park rangers, and volunteers. And the plan is to replace, or half of the mobile radios would be replaced next year, 2021, and then the second half replaced the following year in 21-22. Year after that, we would replace half of our handheld portable radios in 22-23, and then the second half in 23 and 24. Councilman Rowe, you asked a question earlier about repurposing radios. So we are 3 years into our 5-year cycle with portable radios. And 5 years ago, we had moved from the 500 series Motorola to the new advanced Apex radio. A number of those Motorola 500 series radios were repurposed to other departments in the city. The issue with those radios is that they're not supported by Motorola. So when they go down, they're down. There's no parts, there's no maintenance. So they are bricks once they stop working. So in 2 years, we will begin recycling and purchasing new portable radios. And there could be another opportunity in 2 years to take some of those older radios and repurpose those. Otherwise, we get credit when we give those back to Motorola. So that is the end of my presentation.
Mayor.
Council, any comments?
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
So yeah, you mentioned in the beginning, just want to dive a little bit deeper into when you mentioned that we had about 50% turnover since you've been here. Again, I guess what I want to get clarity on is that positive turnover in that, again, it sounded like it was like a lot of retirees. We didn't have a lot of our police fleeing Chandler.
I've been the chief for 6 years, and I'm aware of 2 officers that have left our department for another agency in the Valley. And one wanted to be part of an air unit. We don't have an air unit. And the other one wanted to be part of a tactical team and thought going to another agency would accelerate that. We have lost a handful of people out of state. We've lost a couple of officers to federal agencies, but that's totally anticipated, and there's absolutely no issue with that whatsoever. We don't lose officers to other departments in the state, and that's the true measure. We gain officers from throughout the state coming to Chandler. The turnover would just happen to be the cycle of the season of the police department. This city grew as a city from essentially a very small town in the 90s into a city. They grew tenfold in many ways. The police department exploded overnight within a matter of years. Most of those people are retiring. So we just entered a season of quite a few people that have paid their dues and retiring honorably and leaving the department. So that represents an overwhelming majority of the transition.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. And you also mentioned that with the addition of the new SRO then at Anderson, that we would wind up having an SRO at every school. Is that high school, junior high? Because we don't have an SROs at elementary, or do we?
No, we have them at every high school, public high school and middle school in Chandler. So we have SROs in 2 Kyrene middle schools. We have an SRO at a Summit school, which is a Mesa School District, and we have 7 SROs in the 7 Chandler high school and middle schools in our city.
Okay, good. And then the last one, and this may be in conjunction with you and city manager, just debating on this. So the one-time charge for extension of the business system analyst, the role you kind of mentioned, it seemed pretty critical. I mean, he's got his hand in a lot of different database security. It almost seemed on the evaluation on whether that would be somebody we wouldn't want to have in-house, because we want to make sure that person sticks around. But again, that could be, some people, especially when it comes to IT, don't mind being contractors and actually enjoy that preferably. But is there some sort of weighting that goes in place on that to, again, instead of converting that just a contract into an FTE?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, yes. This year again, the chief did submit this for a position, full-time, ongoing, and simply it comes down to priorities. In the past, the chief has had other priorities in terms of positions that he has needed, and those have been the ones recommended. This continues to be one that we can do contractually. And so again, this year, especially with all of the things that's happened this year, we went back to keep him on contract for 1 more year, and we'll see what next year brings.
Okay, thank you.
Just a real quick note, the hashtag the best, you guys doing a phenomenal job. And I mean, 9th best in the country. Was it the other stat, 50-year low crime rate? Wasn't that a recent stat?
That's an accurate stat, yes.
So kudos to you. My only question to you is how do you put out fire?
When I put out fire,
Uh-huh.
I call the fire department, wake them up, and they go and put it out.
All right, thank you. All right.
Is that a setup joke or?
Councilmember Stewart.
I can't follow that. I just want to commend you on continuing to increase the technology with the force. And, it's very rare, well, you don't hear it very often, but when I'm out with the community, people love our police. And that is a testament to your leadership. It's also a testament to the team that you've built and just the folks that you have on the team. So thank you for that. I know that the community appreciates it. Thanks.
Can I just add one thing? I did omit an item from the first slide, the second COVID impact on the department. I talked about the community part, but our reliance on technology just skyrocketed exponentially. It supports everything we do. But since the pandemic happened, we were able to add a number of people through gain them VPN access through city IT support, so they would be able to keep their social distancing and work at home. So that was a bit of a game changer. And then the timeliness of our mobile phone rollout, which approved last year from council. So all of our officers and sergeants, all of our supervisors, all of our personnel have mobile phones. So they've been able to still provide incredible service while keeping themselves socially distant if the call allows. But we've also been able to leverage our website. In the past, we've had online reporting for years, but it was limited to about 7 different crime types. So now, essentially anything could be reported online except calls in progress, crimes against children, and sexual assaults. So anything else, people can go to the website. So we are creating exposure and opportunities that we've never had before for people to easily access their police.
Councilmember Orlando.
Thanks, Chief, for all you've done. Go back to Vice Mayor's comment about the business system analyst support person. Does that person deal in sensitive material, confidential material, crime scene material, or is it just purely working on platforms?
I missed the beginning of your question.
The business system support analyst. Does that person deal with confidential material, or is it just supporting of, I guess I'm trying to figure out what kind of level of confidence we have to have in that person from a security standpoint aspect of it.
They definitely deal with sensitive information. Anyone that we bring on board, permanent or contract, goes through a very extensive background. And this person happens to be the same person in place, which has been very fortunate for us. Because if we had to go every year and retrain someone and bring them up to speed in our systems, we would be draining resources from someone else on a limited team to then train that person. So we've been fortunate in the sense that we've had continuity with the same person in place. But the security level, they have the same access than anyone else in the department because they've been vetted the same.
Okay, and I know this is a tough year for us, but that may be something we could look at in the future too, just because of that issue alone. Hiring a contractor for that stuff, and as opposed to having a city employee, I know the IT has the same issues. How do we deal with that trusted agent type of activity? So, second, I'm looking over your numbers here. Can you tell me, share with us that we're actually down to below the 5-minute priority 1 and even priority 2 calls? What you did to
Right.
give fidelity to that?
So in September of last year, 19, we did an assessment of our priority 1 calls, what we categorize as priority 1 calls. And then we realized that we were not in line with some of our surrounding agencies. So we had, I believe, maybe 40-something priority 1 call types. For example, a manhole cover ajar removed from the street was a priority 1 call. Obviously, it's important, but it's not what some agencies would consider a priority 1 call. Burglary in progress, someone's getting hurt, a shooting. So we essentially aligned ourselves with similar number of priority 1 calls from our partners, partner agencies. And by doing that, it had a direct effect on our response time, on our numbers, which more accurately reflected our response to true priority 1 calls versus some administrative calls that were miscategorized in the past.
Oh, good. I'm glad you guys are able to do that exercise. That makes much more sense. And I notice your priority 2 calls have gone down as well, and hopefully it's trending downward in that direction.
Right, and we've seen positive trending even before we changed the categories with the fully staffing our patrol staffing model, and then adding Beat 18, which we did about 2 years ago now, and that was an immediate impact on our response times, especially down south.
Okay, so going over sworn officers, where are we at? What do we have holes, or we have retirements coming up the next we have to be looking at?
So we every summer we do our staffing analysis where we look at our patrol numbers, and we've done that now for the last 2 consecutive years, which brought us in line with where we should be based on our variables, our response times, time spent on call, the number of miles driven, all those inputs that we used to assess our patrol staffing. So we are aligned where we should be. The challenge has been when people leave. If we know they're leaving in advance, that gives us time and space to help recruit. We've had funding available to bring overhires in place in preparation for people leaving. And we know certain people, their end date because of the drop. We know definitively this is their last day. But the phenomenon we're seeing over the last couple of years is that many people aren't getting to their end date, and we've had quite a few people leave at 20, not even entering drop. And there's a variety of reasons, and again, bless their hearts, 20 years is a long time in this business. You age in dog years in this profession. It's unlike most other jobs, physically, mentally, emotionally. So if someone does 20 years and they've made it and they're still healthy, happy retirement or next chapter. So we're seeing people leaving that we're not predicting. And we know that we have about 26% of the department today is retirement eligible. So at any point, 26% of the department could walk out tomorrow. I don't predict that, but we are seeing people leave earlier than we forecast. This is not a phenomenon unique to Chandler. This is happening everywhere in the Valley. So every department is competing for a very small group of people that are actually qualified to be police officers. So the recruitment is a huge challenge, and processing them and then identifying the right ones and bringing them on board, and why come to Chandler versus Tempe or Scottsdale or Mesa. It's a bit of a cold war among agencies. We're holding our own, except that COVID slowed everything down. The in-person testing, all our processes have slowed down. So we're using technology. We are doing interviews remotely. So we're not completely stopped, but things have slowed down. At some point, we need to bring these people in, and we haven't been able to do that yet.
Final question, Mayor, thank you. Those 2 civilian traffic coordinators that you brought on last year, those are carried over now as ongoing, correct?
We started a program last year, and we received funding midway through the fiscal year to identify, we have 2 positions that we call police assistants. And these are essentially civilians that will wear a different uniform than officers, but will go out and do essentially 70, 80% of what an officer can do. They'll take accident reports, they'll go home to homes and take burglary reports, and they're a first point of investigation. So they have a wide variety of diverse functions that they can provide, but they don't carry a gun and they're not a sworn officer. So by bringing the civilians on board, we're taking work away from the people who carry guns that can do things that only sworn officers can be doing, and responding to those priority 1 calls, because they're not tied up necessarily at the accident scene. So we have 2 bodies that we're bringing on board, in fact, this week. So they'll be in training, and then this is a program that over years we certainly like to see expand, and it will reduce, ultimately, not eliminate, but reduce the need based on calls and staffing the workload. But instead of bringing on just officers in the future, there's a great possibility we can augment them by civilian aides.
Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks, Mayor. Oh, go ahead.
City Manager.
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, on your question that you just asked about those being ongoing, they are not. They are currently being paid out of salary savings, and they're filling, because the chief has had so many vacancies with police officers, they're kind of filling rotating positions. Prior to COVID, I actually had those as a recommended to bring on this year, but we will continue to pay for those out of salary savings until such time we can bring them on full-time. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware they are not in as ongoing or full-time FTEs. They're basically holding seats of vacancies that the chief currently has. And also, Monday night, you had asked a question about current vacancies of sworn. There are currently 9.
9? Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
The academies, are they closed now, or are they still holding courses?
The academies are still open. They've had to change space. They're using multiple classrooms. People are socially distant, so and they're incorporating some online as well. Looks very different, but they're still.
But they're still going there.
They're still going.
All right. Thanks, Chief. Chief Twiggins.
Real quick, as he's getting ready here. So, as you know, the chief put on there a beautiful German Shepherd to get our hearts. Do you have any animals you're going to share with us to be able to?
These firefighters right here, look at that picture.
Perfect, perfect, man, that just gets you sentimental going.
Staff, that'll work now. Well, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'll be presenting our fiscal year 2021 budget. So I see I have 15 minutes, and for my own life safety, I'm going to try to stay to 15 minutes today. Our 3 accomplishments, our first one is that we did receive international accreditation last year in August This is the 5th time that we've received accreditation. It's a 5-year, every 5 years we renew it. But every 5 years you go through the same process. And I can tell you, each process that we've been through becomes tougher and tougher. We did learn a lot about our organization, about the things that we're doing well, but we also learned about areas that we could do better. And so it's always, there's a lot of value to go through this process. I will say that with international accreditation and ISO 1, I like to brag that we're still in the top 0.5% of all fire departments in the nation that have both of them. Our second item is, as Chief Duggan spoke about, is completing phase 2 of the Public Safety Training Center. Specifically to the fire department, our portion was a multi-purpose building, and the building's multi-purpose because it has a very large mezzanine. It has that we can store things on. It has very large bays that we can store reserve engines and ladder trucks in. But the greatest thing about the building is that it's climate controlled to about 80 degrees. So in the summertime, we can pull all of those trucks out and we can actually bring our firefighters in there and actually train. Every year when it hits 100 degrees, we have to stop doing hands-on training because when you put the turnouts on, you do about a 45-minute evolution, our firefighters are done. And so this is now giving us the option, and we will actually open this up this year where we can actually do hands-on training all year long. The bays that these vehicles go in it is a very big building. We can do extrication, we can do search and rescue, we can actually stretch hose lines in there. So it's really gonna add a ton of value to our training program and increase our ability to make sure that we're performing the most critical part of training, which is the hands-on portion. The final accomplishment, and this is one that we put on here, we're not there yet, this should be completed in June, is that a couple of years ago we came to you for the purchase of a ladder truck for Fire Station 10. We currently have an engine in Fire Station 10, but we are converting that to a ladder company. This is the first ladder company in South Chandler. There is no ladder company even close to us. Gilbert's got one, but I believe it's closer towards Higley. And so for many years now, we've been pulling the ladder trucks from North Chandler, and there is a delayed response to that. So we have purchased the truck. It's here in Chandler right now. It is being upfitted, which is actually the easy part. The hard part is we have to train all of those firefighters. The functions of a ladder truck is completely different than functions of an engine. So the crews at Station 10 have actually been training for about 10 months now. They're going to specialized ladder training that's within the region. And now we're about to train all of the engineers in the department so that if somebody is backfilling at that station, they know how to operate the ladder. But it's a great piece of equipment. It has a ton of specialty equipment. And then of course, I think the best thing is the level of training that those firefighters get will be extremely helpful for our deployment model. Okay, so the impacts of COVID, obviously we've had some impacts in the fire department. I really have it into two areas. One is in response or operations, and I spoke to that a little bit last night. And then the other is the EOC operation. So from a response perspective, everything has changed for us. Our firefighters, as I said, when they get to work in the morning, the first thing that they do is they're being evaluated to see if they have any type of cough, any type of respiratory issues. They have their temperature checked multiple times throughout the day. Anytime that obviously that we're responding to calls, we are wearing a different set of PPE. Our decontamination protocols have completely changed where they're spending a lot more time cleaning everything, as far as the truck goes, all of our equipment. Even going into the station, we do not allow shoes, we do not allow boots, we do not allow any equipment inside the station. They're changing their uniforms probably 6 times a day. They're probably taking a lot of showers after they go on a CLI patient. And then, of course, there's a lot of things that we do on the back end when they are exposed as far as notifications. And so I will tell you they have done an excellent job along with all of the things that we're doing to protect them. We're also doing a lot of things to protect our community, and we have implemented those. I think I told you last night, there's not 1 week that goes by that we do not put a new policy in place or a new procedure on how we treat a patient, or how we enter into the hospital. I can tell you that we have a very captive audience. They have come up with so many ideas on their own because they are actually the boots on the ground that we have adopted, but it's been very successful for us, and we know that that we'll probably be doing this for quite a while. So it's something that we'll continue to refine, continue to get better at. And then the EOC operations. And so, this is obviously something that our organization, and when I say our organization, I mean the city, has put a priority on for a long time. As long as I've been the fire chief with our city manager, we've had EOC drills. We've brought all of the directors in. Just recently, in the last 6 months, many of our directors attended 4-day, basically EOC programs and became certified. We in February did an unannounced drill where we sent a text to them through a system that we use that had them report to the EOC. They had no idea what for, and we had a small drill where we had a tanker car that was releasing a hazmat cloud. Always our directors have done a great job, all of our staff. Obviously, we've always planned for smaller events that are 1 day, maybe 2 day. Today's day 46 with the EOC open, so this is a long one, and they've, like I said, they've been doing a great job. So many people, from the initial actions of the COVID-19 plan, where we had a great meeting on a Sunday, I think, all writing a plan for about 4 or 5 hours, to where we are today, where we have a logistics, planning, operations, finance, administration, communication, safety. Those are all sections that are stood up with, some of them have 10 employees reporting in those sections, and they're meeting on a daily basis. So it's been, in my opinion, as the fire chief, it's been very successful. And I think that when we reflect back on this, maybe 5-10 years from now, I think that we'll be extremely proud of the work that everybody did. So those are our accomplishments and our impacts. Okay, so moving on to our proposed budget. We have a proposed budget of $38.8 million. Our personnel and benefits is $35 million, and our O&M is at $3.8 million. We do have 234 FTEs, which is unchanged from last year. And then the fire department is 100% funded through the general fund. Our decision packages can be found on page 47. We have a total. I have 47 on mine, so I must have an overslide. 53? On page 53. So we have a total of 3 decision packages this year. One of them is ongoing and the other 2 are one-time. So starting with the ongoing package, this is a package, as Chief Duggan said, for the Public Safety Training Center Phase 2. This is the O&M associated with that multi-purpose building. We did come to you last year for the first 6 months of this O&M. This is the balance of that 6 months, of the second 6 months to make that whole. We have 2 one-time decision packages, and I can tell you that much like the police department, these 2 packages, they both center around the attrition that we're seeing in our organization. So our first one is a fire academy, and this is a one-time for $199,000. This is actually for a recruitment process and fire academy. Right now, we currently have 5 vacant positions within our organization. And by the time that we get through this recruitment process and the fire academy, we'll have 9 vacancies. And so we are requesting that we put 9 candidates into our process. The recruitment process includes a written test. It includes a physical, a 5-week internship and interviews. Once we get that list down to 9, we put those individuals into a 14-week fire academy. If they successfully complete the academy, we put them through a 1-year probationary period where we continue to test them, not only from a written standpoint, but physical tests as well. We did go through the application process prior to COVID-19, so we were on track to do the test. We had 1,468 qualified applicants, and so our goal, as soon as we open this up and we can start getting the groups together, is to get that number down to 9. I can tell you on the testing side that is a little bit costly, and so we did go into a joint test with the city of Scottsdale, where we are sharing that the cost for those tests, and we hope to complete that sometime here pretty soon. One other thing I want to add is that when we conduct this academy with 9 people, we will open it up to the region, which means our regional partners, the cities that surround us, if they want to place their firefighters or their fire recruits into our academy, we do have a user fee schedule where we can get reimbursement to train their firefighters. Okay, our next item is the paramedic education program. Again, right now we have a total of 5 current vacancies. This is actually an 11-month program, and by the time this program graduates, just a couple months after that, we'll have a total of 12 vacancies. So we are asking for 12 students to enter into this program. This program does meet Arizona Department of Health Services requirements for state and national certification. It consists of classroom hours, clinical hours where the students will go to Chandler Regional, they'll work with the physicians and the nurses and shadow them, and then vehicular hours, and that's where they work with senior paramedics on the truck. Again, this program is one that we will be opening up to the region. There is a potential revenue that we can bring in if we bring in some of those students. It is in our fee schedule. Okay, so moving on to our CIP. We have a total of 4 items in the CIP. Our first one is for fire vehicles greater than $100,000. And so this is actually for fiscal year 21-22 for $350,000. This is 2 trucks, a hazmat vehicle and a technical rescue vehicle. Both of these vehicles are support vehicles. They're really only utilized on those specialty type of incidents. I can tell you that this vehicle was actually due for replacement this year. It is 18 years old, but it has extremely low miles on it and it is in great shape. Actually, both of them are. So we did defer it to 21-22 based on what we're seeing, and we'll reevaluate it. We'll look at the maintenance records. There's a very good chance that we're going to continue to defer this vehicle out as long as we have a good life on it. And right now it's performing, or both are performing excellent. Our next item is for dual band radios. This is a CIP ask for $490,000. In fiscal year 17-18, we did purchase 79. We have a total of 126 radios in stock in our organization, but we upgraded 79 to the APX radios that Chief Duggan spoke of. Our remaining balance of radios, we have 47 of them, will no longer be supported in fiscal year 22-23. So this is a request for $490,000 in 22-23 to replace the remainder of those 47 radios. So we have the APX 8000 in our entire stock. These are always good candidates for grants, and this is something that our grant team will continue to apply for to see if we can get grant funding for these radios. Our next item is for personal protective equipment. As you all know, all firefighters are issued 2 sets of turnout gear. This is something that we started 5 years ago. We do this because if our firefighters run a call where we're going into a house fire or a building fire, a hazmat call, and our turnouts are soiled, our policy is that on scene, we take those turnouts, we bag them, we put them in a compartment, bring them back to the fire station. Within a day, somebody will come pick those turnouts up. They will take them to be laundered, and then they'll be inspected. Once they're good to go, they bring them back to the station. But in that interim time, we need to have a set of turnouts for those firefighters. That way the truck can get right back into service. And so this is for fiscal year 21, 22, and then 22, 23. We cut it in half, 385,000 the first year and 404,000 the second year. The way it works is the set that our firefighters have right now is coming up on 5 years old. They'll get that new set of turnouts, and that set that they've had for 5 years will now go to reserve for 5 years. So that ensures that they always have 2 sets available for them.
Mayor? So you're good, this is just, this is the replacement plan, so everybody's got 2 sets and,
We are great. We are set. We have 2
Okay.
sets. We are just now in the first, since we started this program, this is the first 5 years, so it's time to replace that first set. Okay, finally, our last item is the rebuilding of Fire Station 2. Fire Station 2 is located at Alma School in Warner. The fire station was built in 1986, so it's 34 years old. Right now, the fire station houses 1 paramedic engine company and 1 paramedic ambulance. Both of these units are the busiest units within our city. The engine company is just under 5,000 calls per year. Or the district that they respond to has just under 5,000 calls per year. And then the ambulance is right around 3,600 calls per year. We've seen an increase over the last 5 years. It's been a 23% increase in call volume in that area. Obviously, with that many calls, our engine that runs out of that station cannot respond to all of them. What happens is somebody will call 911 in North Chandler, we'll respond to that call, and at that same time, somebody else in North Chandler will call 911, and we'll have to send another unit from either outside the city, Mesa, Tempe, Gilbert, or one of our stations that are outside of Fire Station 2. It's called a stacked call. In 2019, that happened 1,089 times, where we had to have another unit outside of Station 2 come into District 2 to actually respond on the call. That is the way our automatic aid system works, is that when we need help like that, they automatically dispatch it. The problem is that there's a minimum of 45 seconds additional response time when we pull someone from an out-of-station unit into our district. And so we really watch that number, our stacked call number, to see if that's growing. Station 2 accounts for 26% of all stacked calls in the city of Chandler, and the actual district accounts for almost 20% of all the call volume in Chandler of all of our 11 stations. So the solution to this is we have 2 fire trucks at Fire Station 8 right down the road here on Fry. That station has very good coverage around it with the other stations. When one of those trucks are out or both trucks are out and another truck has to come in and to respond, it's a 4-second time addition. So we're talking 45 seconds that you add in North Chandler, 4 seconds that you add here in the center. And the reason for that is when we constructed our stations, we built them to the core, which is actually the smart thing to do. But this Fire Station 2, it really just has exceeded, and it's getting to the point now where those response times are continuing to creep up. What we would like to do is move the engine company from Fire Station 8 to Fire Station 2. The problem is that Fire Station 2, when it was built in 1986, it was built for only 2 trucks. We have to have the ambulance there because it is the busiest ambulance in the system, and we have to obviously have the engine. So there's no place to put that additional engine company. What we're asking here is that we rebuild the fire station on site. We've looked at a lot of options. The fire station is actually located in the perfect spot. We pick up a lot of calls right there, but we want to make the station bigger so that we add bay space for another truck to pull into, and then we have the living quarters, obviously, for the firefighters to stay. So this is fiscal year 2021. There's $800,000 in design, and then in fiscal year 21-22, the construction is $6,700,000. This is going to be done over a 2-phase process so that our firefighters will be living in the station. They will not have to be displaced. A lot of times, and we've had to do this in the past, is move them into a trailer, build a bay for them to live out of until the station's done. We have a really good plan where they can stay inside the trailer or inside the fire station, and they're going to build around them. So we believe that, and going through our accreditation, going through obviously all of our response models, we did a 500-page standards of coverage report that shows that North Chandler is the most likely to have a structure fire. North Chandler is the most likely to have a significant medical emergency, and North Chandler is the most likely to have a hazmat incident. We've seen those numbers time and time again, and so that is why we're moving this forward. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, council? Good job. And what's the timeline on the reconstruction of District 2 then? I know you gave the times for the money allocation, but once you actually start that, how long will it take to finish it?
Mayor, so the design would be in 2021, and then obviously construction would be 21, 22. As far as the length of time that it would take to build, I'm not sure what that would be.
And I think I heard you say that it'll still be operating all the time that it's being reconstructed.
Mayor, that is correct. They will still be in service at Fire Station 2, and they're going to build around them.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
City Manager has turned it over to me. I'll do a wrap up with some final comments. I did want to just thank Mayor and Council for your time today and just all your thoughtful comments and everything. I know everyone in this room cares deeply about the city of Chandler, and we are certainly in an interesting period of time in our history. There's still some additional meetings. I just wanted to remind remaining key dates regarding our budget process. On May 28th is the tentative budget adoption. And with that, once the tentative budget is set that evening, at that point, we can no longer take it up. We can still take it down before final adoption, but that is just one thing I wanted to mention there. June 11th would be the public hearing on the budget, CIP, and proposed tax levy. And then finally, June 25th, the adoption of the property tax levy. And one final thing is I just wanted to thank my budget staff, Matt, and everyone sitting out here. They're just amazing through this process. And even with the additional work that needed to be done, everyone just jumped in and did it. They're truly amazing, so thank you. And to the team. All right.
I do know that we'll have a lot of eyes on this budget, both from your staff and with us, the opportunity and others to review this. So, you know, I have a high confidence that we'll continue to stay on track and make whatever adjustments that we need to. Council, any final comments? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you,
Let's
Mayor.
go this way. Yeah.
Don, thank you to you and your team. Being able to flip this around and make these adjustments with 7 of us, sort of commenting to you about what we're looking at and what we're seeing and things that we're hearing from the field, and to be able to make an about-face adjustment on a $1 billion budget is remarkable. I know we're going to continue to communicate, continue to work at this, but it was a commendable job, and I just want to thank you for that.
Councilmember McClements.
Echo I want to reiterate the same thing. Nice work, and you know it's wonderful. We're rounding the corner of my second budget cycle, and so much work was done and almost done, and then the 12th hour we had this health care crisis, and so much has changed in such a short period of time, and it was evolving almost on a daily basis. And I do feel good about the cuts we've made, but still having the flexibility to adjust on the fly if things get worse, or if they get better, we can still lead. And so kudos to you guys. Awesome work.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you to everybody for the flexibility, the force change, and that goes to all the directors and all the employees out there that, I mean, change is hard to deal with anyway, but when it's forced on you so quickly and from all different directions, it's like everybody responded amicably. You know, and I'm going to give kudos again to IT. I mean, this was definitely, it looks like a lot of innovative and out-of-the-box thinking that we've always implored out of our staff. But again, everybody rose to the occasion, and it looks seamlessly to our citizens and our residents out there to provide the services to them. So thank you to all the staff.
Councilmember Wong.
Just like to say thank you very much. It's my honor to work with you, and yeah, that's it.
Councilmember Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for sitting here and enduring this, not only late last night, but all day today. And Clearly, we have a direction. There's been a ton of work that's gone into this. I've recognized this every year, and from the beginning today, there's a lot of work. I know there's a lot of room for adjustment. I can see that. And we'll work on it as we go forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Orlando.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thanks to staff. I won't tell you how many budgets I've done because then I'll just date myself. So, but, you know, it's easy to put, it's easier, I should say, Dawn, and you could attest to this, and city manager, to put a budget together when things are going well. Revenue's coming in, services are being made, but this budget represents a continued tradition of what's best in Chandler. We're delivering quality service at a value, and that's what this budget represents. This budget also represents a good way of giving us options as we go forward. None of us are economists on this dais. None of us are crystal balls, and at least that I know of anyone here might have a crystal ball. But I think what it did today is gives us the option of doing things we can do. If money comes in, things are getting better. We got the contingent reserve, and we talked about that at length today. So I feel very, very comfortable with this budget, probably more so back in 2009 and 8 and 10 when we put that budget together. Dawn, I know you were here, but you remember that budget. This one's a lot more easier in my mind putting this budget together than it was back then. We had a good framework to start, and I think this is a great budget. And finally, I just want to I thank the staff again, but I want to thank the residents out there and the citizens. We got close to over the last 2 years, 1,900 comments on what we should be doing with their money. This is taxpayer dollars with their money. So I shouldn't say I'm impressed, because I expect it every year from you, Dawn. That's why you get those awards. You and your team get those awards. That, I don't know, was it 500 awards? Something, I know what it was. But if you keep getting those, we're gonna have to put your own floor in the building or something, because we're running out of room. But thank you for doing it. And council, this has been great dialogue. I'll be, very upfront with you. We've had some good times bantering back and forth, but this has been a good dialogue. It's refreshing, and I really enjoyed the dialogue here.
So thank you, council, for sticking in. This was a late night last night. I thought that conversation was excellent as well, just too tired to say so last night. And but I really think that will set us ahead of other cities and really prepare us for where we're going. Thank you, staff, for also being with us last night and today. And I hope you all have a great weekend. So, city manager, any final word?
Just to say thank you to Mayor and Council for all the input. We'll take the questions we received today. We'll get you answers back here as soon as we can. And we'll be bringing forward a budget in May.
All right.
Thank
With
you.
that.